will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 18 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. I have trail mix snack tonight because I think we might be here a little while. I'm going to read the quote that I like to open with. So tonight the quote is, "If anyone had told you you're too much, it's probably the key to all the greatest powers you have." All right. And with that, we're going to start our meeting. So the first thing is public and select board information. This is information that either members of the public or the select board may have that is not related to tonight's agenda. So I'll ask the select board if anyone has anything. No, anyone from the public? All right, seeing nothing, we'll move on to appointments. And we have a fire department update and the introduction of new staff. We have Chief Dan Keene here and Deputy Chief Lisa Albino. So I think Chief Keene is coming up. Yeah. All right.
Where's Lisa going?
Bring it up the rear.
Good evening, everybody. I don't get up in front of the board often, but when I do, it's usually for good reason. And this is as good a reason as any. As you well know, the last 2 years has been quite tumultuous at the fire department, pretty much everywhere in town. But significantly, we were impacted through personnel issues throughout the last couple of years. So we made an effort, a collaborative effort with the town, Jackie and the union, the firefighters union, to come up with a plan on how we can get back on plane with our staffing. We at one point we were to 75% strength, and that was in the heat of the summer. So we had mandatory call-ins for overtime, etc. So it was a tough go, but instead of crying in our milk, we decided to do something about it. So Kayla's done a great job with her social media out there. She does some really nice things, and we were able to put that out to the public through word of mouth. East Ham's a great place to work, and in the last collective bargaining agreement, we got a for experienced firefighters, they could start at a higher rate, which is a game changer. And you'll see why. So we also had a change in chief, a change in deputy chief. We had 2 resignations, a retirement, and 2 long-term line of duty retirements. So in that period of time, we still functioned, but it was hard. So we were able to, I got to show Jackie, and she agreed with the benefits of adding 2 day shift personnel to our regular staff, which would bolster what we had. So if we did have someone out on a long-term injury, we had someone in the on deck circle to jump right in, so we wouldn't have the exorbitant overtime costs, etc. So, and that's worked out really, really well. So that being said, I thought it would be a good idea to show you the new look East Ham Fire Department. So as the result of all this work and effort, we have been very fortunate to get some very talented individuals to join our team. So some of you have been around for a while. You see the fire department and you say, I don't know any of them anymore. So I thought I'd just show you the latest and greatest that we've added to the ranks. So first off is Adriana Burrell. Adriana is a graduate of Nauset High School. She received her EMT in 2022, and she's been working with Lower Cape Ambulance since then. During the interview, she was so impressive. She's got a lot to learn, but she was so impressive in that interview that it was a unanimous decision that she has a lot of talent and she's homegrown. So we brought her on board, and coincidentally, we had no idea Nicole Payne, Shellfish Board, is her mother. So that's kind of cool. So next is Chase King. Chase is a Wellfleet boy. He attended Nauset High School and LaSalle College, right? And he received his EMT in 21, and he worked for Lower Cape Ambulance as well.
Oh, nice.
He's an avid fitness buff, So if you see him running around on the streets, wave and say hello. Chase is headed to the State Firefighting Academy in April. Katie Kerrigan. Our girl Katie, she's an 8-year veteran of the United States Coast Guard.
Ah,
She achieved the rank of bosun's mate, 3rd class. She worked for Brewster Ambulance in Plymouth, running 911 calls for the last 3 years. She's finished her paramedic training and is ready to take her state final exam. She'll be going to the academy with Chase in April as well. Kate Deneen. Kate Deneen, she's a veteran of the fire service. She started her career in Lakeville a few years ago, and she's a certified paramedic. She then moved to the Cape, and she worked for Centerville Hospital, Marston's Mills for 7 years. She was looking for a change in work environment, and through word of mouth, she may have heard that Eastham is a great place to work. So Kate interviewed with us and we offered her a job. She brings a wealth of experience. She's a fire academy instructor for the State Fire Academy. So, which is great. So she's going to be a welcome addition to our fire department. Alex Haykiller. There he is. So Alex is a jack of all trades. He has experience in everything, anything from food prep, cooking, automobile repair, ER tech in the hospital. Plus, he comes with 5 years experience, full-time firefighter in Bourne Fire Department.
Nice.
He's a paramedic and he's a certified paramedic, and he's going to be a great addition to the team. He just started. So that's Alex. And probably the coolest thing is this story that came out. This came out of nowhere. Bob Davidson. Bob, right. If anyone's wondering, geez, they're hiring anybody, you know. Don't you have an age limitation, right, Bob? He approached us. He recently moved into town, and he took a class years ago with Deputy Albina on critical stress, and he remembered her. And when he moved here, he thought, well, let me see if they need a chaplain. He was a chaplain in Westwood and Norwood previously. And it was perfect time because we had lost our minister, et cetera. So Bob is a certified chaplain with Massachusetts State Fire Chaplains Association. He's done it for quite a while, and he's our first official chaplain. So we're lucky to have him. It's a great resource for not only the firefighters, but for the community as well. He's helped out on a few incidents so far. So it's been great to have. So I just wanted to introduce everybody, and these are the new people. This is the face of the fire department, and I'm very proud of it, and you should be too. So
Thank you.
thank you. Welcome.
Welcome.
we good?
Anybody have any questions? No?
Question, just welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for
the time.
coming today.
Rich. I should have brought cookies to them.
All right, thank you very much. All right, is it okay to start public hearing even though it's 5:40?
They were all advertised for 5:30, so.
Great. Okay, so we are going to be moving into our public hearings. The first is going to be fee hearing. This is proposed fee increases. Beach, Rock Harbor, Dockage, Town Clerk, 2023 Wetland Bylaws, Historical Commission, Old Town Center Commission, and poll hearings. I will be having folks present first, then opening discussion to the select board, and then public comment or question will come after that, just so everybody understands how the process. All right, so I will turn this over to Jackie, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think, so the memo is pretty self-explanatory, and then we did give you backup for each of the proposed fee changes. And I would say there's a couple that are new, very new. So one is the day pass booklet. and Christine is here if you have any questions on it, but basically we got a request from short-term rental landlords and to be able to give an amenity to their guests in terms of a beach pass. And so we talked around it and thought that this might be a coupon book kind of with day passes that would have to be signed and turned over to the beach gate attendant, so they couldn't be used more than once. And that we'd do a 10% reduction in fees if they bought books of 10. And this is sort of, Christine and I discussed it as a experiment. Like, we'll see how well it works this year. We don't foresee that it will cut revenue tremendously, but it might make a dent in some of those weekly and 2-week passes. So we'll just keep an eye on that for this year and see if there's any appetite for it. The Rock Harbor dockage fees are consistent with what you had discussed with both Scott and Shayna in prior discussions. I don't think they made any changes. We're sticking with the 30-foot commercial because that's similar to what Orleans charges. So we want to stay in that same, that's the only change, I think. Town clerks are pretty self-explanatory. And then the big list is the wetlands bylaw filing fees. And I think that while some of these appear to be great increases, I know that you all understand how complex some of these conservation filings are and how much both staff time and basically it's $8 for each abutter notice these days. So all those fees are going up. So Keith is here if you have any questions about that. And then the other two are the historic, not just adding. Paul wanted us to add those fees basically because we are paying for certified mailings on those and we've never had fees associated with them. We do not get too many of those, but for the ones we do, we should charge something. And then Lori suggested that we add the poll hearing petition fee because every other town has that except us. And again, we have a lot of abutters notices on those as well. So that is the list. And if you have any questions, staff is here to answer them.
Great. Thank you very much, Jackie. All right, I'm going to turn this over to the select board for questions or comments. Suzanne?
I'll make a brief comment about the wetlands bylaw filing fees. I was on the commission last year when this was discussed and we had just missed the deadline for getting it to you. And I would like to think it was well thought out. It took into account regional fees in neighboring towns. There was also consideration for how complex the different categories are. And it seemed like we were undercharging people for the amount of work and labor that is involved in these filings. And yeah, I hope the board supports it.
Great. Thank you. I just had a little tiny question about one of the ones under town clerk. The any records supplied on disk went from, there was a fee and we removed it. And I was just curious what that, maybe I didn't understand that.
I think it was because we used to provide like an actual CD or
A
drive,
disk. Okay,
and
so now we just
don't.
email someone
Right,
information.
exactly.
So
We
there's,
can
okay,
transmit it electronically for no charge.
okay, great. That,
So it's not really on a disc, it's
Right.
Digital,
Oh, yeah.
a digital.
Yeah, we should
record.
just
Yeah,
change that to
supplied digitally, any
digital
supplied.
records.
Jamie,
Jerry?
can we, I see where Dennis has a fee plus regular postage. Now, we use certified mail. We have it $8. Can you have it, I don't know, is the $8 the certified mail charge? Or if it is, does it make sense? Because the postal is going to change rates likely in July. So to change it to plus plus postage or
Plus actual
this amount
cost.
plus certified postage or whatever it is. That's only a thought and I don't know what the number is. I'm sorry. I didn't look it up.
So why don't we do $50 plus $8 for actual cost?
Or, yeah, current, yeah.
Yeah.
Current postal.
Yeah, I mean,
Fee.
that's fine. That way we don't have
Actual
to
cost
come
occurred.
back for it. Yeah.
That's
Great.
great. Thank you, Jeff.
Posters can change it. And we.
It doesn't get outdated.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sherry. Okay. All right, any other questions or comments from the select board? No. Do I have any questions or comments on this topic from the public? And do we have people on Zoom, Rich, that might? No, okay. All right, seeing none. This is a public hearing, so do we need to vote on this then? Do you want us? Yes, okay. All right, then I'll take a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the fees as presented.
I second that.
Okay, and since everyone's here, I'll just call the vote collectively. All in favor?
I,
Opposed?
Awesome.
Now for the next public hearing, should I be, you don't want me to read this in total?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
all right, get ready, folks. Proposed Rock Harbor dockage assignment and regulation public hearing. The Eastham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 6, 2023 at 5:30 PM at the Eastham Town Hall in the Earl Mountain Room, 2500 State Highway, and by remote participation to consider and may vote to establish Rock Harbor dockage assignment and general regulations and revise the Rock Harbor waitlist regulations in order to manage procedures and activities in the harbor. New regulations and changes include, but are not limited to, commercial slip allocations, slip deferment limits, waitlist application requirements, household limits, slip utilization requirements, commercial slip transfers. Draft regulations may be reviewed at the Eastham Town Hall, 2500 State Highway, Eastham, Mass, or on the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov on the Natural Resources Department webpage.
That
All
covers
right.
everything.
And now it's your turn, Jada.
That pretty much covers everything.
Yeah,
Jane.
Yeah, done.
I'm Shayna Brogan with the town of Eastham. So first I'll start with the dockage regulations. So these are new regulations for the harbor. They're proposed to primarily allocate 25% of the slips as commercial. Some of the changes are a maximum of 1 slip assigned per household. The slips in the south docks would be allocated for commercial use. The slip holder will need to submit documentation about their business to the town. The regulation allows for a slip holder to leave their slip unused for up to 1 season. They allow for commercial slip transfers, and that's pretty much the main changes to the dockage regulations. I don't know if we have anything.
Do you want me to do questions per section or do you want to wait till the end or
It's up to you.
from the board?
That's all of it, isn't it?
Okay,
all
that's,
of it, right?
that's in total. Or did you have anything else?
This is just for the dockage
This is-
regulations. That's kind of all. I was gonna kind of go through the dockage regulations and then move on to the wait list if that.
Yep.
if that works.
Okay. So then,
Well, we had a couple of emails from Patrick
Waitlist.
Fay, and I think you were all copied on them. I just want to make sure that we're addressing those. One had to do with what is commercial and asking how are we going to make sure that somebody that is going onto the commercial dock is really a commercial business. And I had talked to Shayna about this and she gave me the literature in the process, and it seems that kind of covers it.
Mhm.
Question is, are you guys comfortable with that? And the second one was, why were we only allowing 1 slip per household? I'm comfortable with that. I think, we have a very limited number of slips. We have a very long waiting list.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were comfortable with the wording that we have and that we did, whether we wanted to make any changes or not.
So I think the wording kind of gives a little bit of flexibility. It does give the harbor master some discretion when the applicant is submitting their paperwork, when they initially get on a waiting list for a commercial slip, but also when they are offered a slip. It also gives flexibility to the commercial slip holder to submit the documentation that they feel is going to best demonstrate that they're using the slip commercially. So I think it is fine the way that it's written, and if we find that there are any issues with it, if Scott finds that there's any issues with it, somebody's not using it appropriately, he can bring it to the select board. There is the provision in the regulations that allows him to do that.
If you guys are comfortable with it, I'm more than willing to draft a response back to him to make sure we've answered him.
Yep, Amy?
Yeah, I just have a comment on the, the idea that I'm trying to find the words here.
Yeah.
We're changing it that they have to show basically proof that they're running a business.
Mhm.
Do we have people right now, though, that have slips? Because I know the previous regulation only said you had to possess a commercial fishing license, which anyone could go out and buy for $300.
So the regulation for dockage commercially to be a commercial dockage space would have then applied to the fees. Is that what you're asking? Because if somebody had a recreational slip in the South Dock area or a commercial slip, they can keep it if they have it, but the fee is going to change.
I see.
But otherwise.
It would be
I don't know if that answers your
grandfathered for the
question.
moment.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm curious if there's someone who's really not a commercial fisherman that has a slip now on the South Docks.
Yes.
Do we,
But
they, and
didn't
they
we-
can't prove that they actually,
But didn't we decide that you were going to mix up the South Docks too?
So, so people that are existing now,
Mm.
they will pay the recreational fee. It's not gonna cover their commercial. They won't get the commercial rate.
But they will
until
continue to stay in a commercial
they-
slip.
Yes, until it rotates through where they
That's
give
what
it
I
up,
thought.
then we get,
Then you move them to a,
and once they give up their slip, then we get a commercial in.
It was grandfathered basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Grandfathering
okay, that's what I was
Yep.
looking for.
like a pre-existing non-conforming.
Got it.
slip.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking.
Right, but as far as just, so you know, we have two boats now that are fully 100% commercial.
Commercial. Got it. Got
So
it.
that puts it in perspective, and one's on the north dock.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other issue of having more than one per household, I know the person that wrote the letter said, it's kind of like beach stickers. You can have more than one house, but you have a lot more parking spaces for
Yeah, we do.
cars than we do for boats. And I think we really need to limit how many we,
Yeah, and we discussed that.
That was. a
And we
discussion.
were talking about family.
Right.
We worded it to one per household
Yeah.
versus family. 'cause
Yeah.
It wasn't.
and I'm
or
just
blood relatives.
reiterating that I support that also. But
Suzanne?
I was wondering if, so there's the requirement to prove commercial use. And I was wondering if we had any more consideration of how the intensity of commercial use we were gonna require, or if, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because some towns do like a percentage of your income or, you know. And I was just wondering if we had considered that in this policy.
I think we want to keep it as simple as possible, but
I talked to another harbor, I talked
Yeah.
to Nate in Orleans. And he's been trying to put this together too, this definition.
Oh, good.
Which is,
Hmm.
there's a lot of area. The only word he used that would be easy, I think simple, would be exclusively using it for commercial.
Hmm.
It ties you to, you're not taking the kids out on the boat on the weekend.
Right.
This is exclusively, and we can just observe that.
yeah.
So I don't know if we want to go that far.
But I
down.
think, I think what I'm sensitive to is that we have a lot of people here
Yeah.
that work more than one job, right? So
Right.
you may have a day job, you may be a fisherman too, or a shell fisherman and do something else. So I would hate to
Mhm.
make it so strict that we couldn't have that still, because I think that's a part of Cape Cod, right? It's a part
agree.
of living here. But we also don't want someone who's saying they're commercial just to get a better rate and then not doing commercial business at all. So that, I think they have to give you something, and an explanation. If there's been, like, we asked the shell fishermen, if you're not using your grant for more than a period of time, why?
Mm.
And is it a legitimate reason you're ill, whatever.
And I think too, through the application process, we're not just gonna ask for like one set of trip reports. It would be like a combination of things. You should submit a set of trip reports plus proof of advertising or brochures, or, we'll have to work out
Yeah.
what they submit, but it would be more than just one set.
Even
of
tax forms.
And
or
basically, they
something.
won't lose the slip right now. They will just have to pay more money, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Jerry?
Well, there is you could try and look at, as you look at what's commercial or not, take a look at IRS rules on what's a hobby and what's not a hobby, and you can try and apply those as well to avoid having to go to exclusive, which I think, my father-in-law used to lobster. He had another job and stuff, and he
Mhm.
once in a while took me out, and maybe I tried to help him, but I clearly wasn't exclusive lobstering. But I think that you can go back on tax records. I think that the idea is not just look at the latest, but go back 5 years and see what they've done to try and look at commercial. I think you have it, it has to be an integral part in the reg, and I think if you look at it that way, that might be some help. I have no problem with how you have it written here. I wouldn't go to exclusive, and I think you let people know you're going to be taking a look at taxes for the last 5 years or something like that.
And from a regulatory standpoint, from an enforcement standpoint, as long as there's a rationale that you have, that's why you're calling it A versus B, then it can always be appealed. And we can take a look at it, right?
True.
Amy?
Yeah, I have one question about, we have wait lists. The maximum amount of people on the wait list now is, how many people is it? 20? 30 that we have
Which,
It's not.
on either commercial or the,
I probably have 130 some total.
so I have a question. Are those all either Eastham or Orleans taxpayers? Do we know? Or do we even,
I think the majority is, but I
Mm.
won't say for certain. But I think
yeah,
the
I'm curious, because I did look at some of the other towns. I looked at Orleans and they actually limit, I think it's just their commercial. They limit to Eastham or Orleans.
We have done that here. So
For commercial.
for commercial.
For commercial, you have to be a Eastham or Orleans. I
Okay.
guess.
And you're saying recreational has over 100 people on it right now?
Well, the inside on the north dock has 71, outside has 65.
Oh,
And
Why-
16 of those are from other towns. Other than that, it's all Orleans or all Eastham.
I mean, I know, do you mind if I?
no, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is a small resource for this town that is high demand, without a doubt, like probably one of our smallest resources with the biggest demand. And the fact that it's open to non-taxpayers kind of like blew my mind when I realized that today. There are other places that you can go to put your boat, or you can just back it in each time you want to go out. But the fact that we have such a huge number of folks on a wait list, I think that the limiting it to taxpayers in the two towns for both commercial and recreational only makes sense. Maybe there's other opinion there too, but I don't see why we're not adding taxpayer to the.
And I really, for all these things we're talking about today, whether it be moorings, vessel storage, you had sent me an email,
All of
Scott,
it, yeah.
about a similar thing, because we have how many hundreds of people sign up to, put their kayaks and canoes at town landings, and people from out of town are getting some of them, and so I don't know.
The
is that something
taxpayers'
we
money that's
wanna- Yeah,
Keeping it up.
right.
I just,
We want to limit taxpayers, Eastham and Orleans, because they're all, except for the ponds,
yeah,
the saltwater are shared by both towns.
Yep.
And I think if, Orleans is allowing us to do it for, in their town, we should, reciprocate that.
Mhm.
But I don't know what,
Okay.
if you thought about that.
I'm sensitive to the amount of work you guys have already put in. and I would hate to have it come back again. Can we just add a sentence that says if to a dock or a slip in Eastham, you have to either be an Eastham or Orleans taxpayer?
And
then-
that doesn't mean that they can't be on the waiting list if they intend
To
to.
move here.
That's what I mean.
Right.
At that, maybe once they,
Well, no, I
for a slip,
mean,
but then
no,
if
I
they get-
disagree with that.
You don't think they should be on the waiting list?
No, I think the whole point of this is that the wait list is over 100 people.
Yeah, but if
And-
they come up and they're not a resident, then they don't get the slip.
Yeah.
So then it
It's
goes
It's
to the
their
next
choice,
person.
basically.
It's their choice.
I see what
paying
you're
us
saying. So they're
money
paying us
to-
money. to be
Since
on the-
they're already on it, and they've been paying their money. I guess they just need to know
because
that.
I feel. I see what
whoever's
you're
on the
saying.
list now is gonna remain on the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's fair. I understand what you're saying. But I do think, like you said, that it's taxpayer for Orleans or Eastham for the slips, but I think for vessel storage and what was the other?
Across the board.
Moorings.
Boring.
Moorings. Oh, wait, well, moorings we do
Moorings
Orleans,
Separate-
Yeah.
separate policy.
but I think vessel
there's
storage should only be Eastham. Yeah, I mean, does Orleans allow us to store vessels?
They don't have any.
Yeah, so no, that should just be Eastham taxpayers, unless anyone else disagrees.
For vessel storage.
For vessel storage, so kayak storage, and I mean, that's a huge number of people that try to.
We about what, hundred
Well,
and
yeah, they don't.
eighty?
They don't all
It
get it,
increases
'cause
every
it's a
year.
lottery.
Would you
Right.
wouldn't need a vessel to get to a mooring, would you?
Yeah,
You wouldn't
yes,
want-
but that's
Yeah. But
different.
you
If you
wouldn't
have a
rely on
mooring,
them.
Then you could.
yeah, and especially if you're a shellfisher person, you get a free,
Okay,
Yes, that goes with the
Yeah,
mooring,
it goes with
those
the
that are
mooring.
commercial.
right, those that are
Great,
commercial,
that's all
right?
Okay.
When
So-
we say taxpayer, we just mean resident, right?
no,
No.
we mean taxpayer.
Taxpayer, so
Taxpayer,
non-resident
just-
taxpayer, they still own property in town, pay taxes, they should be able to get one too.
I just
I
meant
think.
like if you're renting.
No,
Oh, no,
that's,
no.
that's different than a
No, I
taxpayer.
meant if you don't
Oh,
Ah,
own land.
if you're a
Oh,
renter, year-round
rent to
renter,
Live in Eastham.
Oh, yeah,
you
resident
don't-
or resident. or
Resident or
taxpayer.
Pay excise tax in your car usually.
Well, yeah, well, does
Oh
that
my
count
God.
as
Yeah.
the excess?
There's-
I don't know.
you're not wrong. No, you're not wrong,
Yeah.
Suzanne.
No, you're right. We should add that because, yeah, if you're
just
renting and
resident
you're not
or
paying
taxpayer.
taxes, you're a resident and residents. I think
Yeah.
when we use taxpayer, we use it to include
Right.
part-time resident
Right.
taxpayers, but we certainly don't want to exclude
Year-round renters.
residents who don't own
Right.
property.
Right, exactly.
So
Sorry, guys.
residents and taxpayers.
Yeah.
correct.
Including non-resident taxpayers.
Yeah. but if
Well,
they were
residents and
taxpayers,
taxpayers.
we cover 'em.
So
Okay,
A
right.
non-resident taxpayer is included, yeah, as tax,
Okay.
yeah.
Do we want to, the lottery opens up on February 15th,
Mhm.
so do we want to
Next week.
make those changes prior to this year?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, I think after we get all the comments, I think we can vote on that tonight with those changes included.
And a lot of questions, I know, are we shifting the vessel
Can I just-
storage? Because let's finish.
Hold
voting.
on.
Yeah,
well, we
let me
have to
just
vote on it.
clarify. So we can include in the waitlist regulations, which I haven't really gone over, but we can just discuss that since it's already part of this hearing. Applicants for the inside and outside waiting list shall be Eastham or Eastham taxpayers and residents.
taxpayers or residents.
And or residents, yeah.
And or residents, yeah.
For the wait list,
Sorry, dockage.
for
Dockage.
dockage.
Sorry, I meant
okay.
dockage.
But really, it should be everything.
Should be everything.
Okay.
Yeah. It really should be.
Do we,
That's a good catch. Susan.
one,
Oh, sorry, Jerry.
yeah, on dockage, we're allowing Orleans as well as Eastham. So it's not just Eastham
Right.
residents and taxpayers, Eastham or Orleans residents and taxpayers.
And that's for the commercial South Dock area, which is, we have reciprocal Eastham Orleans for aquaculture,
Sure.
shellfish permits and that sort of thing. So we have that the South Dock commercial area shall be bona fide domiciled residents of the town of Eastham or Orleans.
Oh,
they're
domicile
in
for
commercial.
commercial, okay, yeah, that's commercial is different than.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's okay.
In our commercial district, I thought we had talked about this. Maybe I'm wrong and maybe, I'm gonna make everyone crazy, but does Orleans allow Eastham residents on their commercial slips?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so then the point
And
is,
there's more of them.
does
that
Orleans
they're-
allow part-time residents in their commercial slips?
I
Don't know.
not sure.
No, I think it said, I did read it earlier, but I'm pretty sure it said residents.
And
Residents.
that's what ours says now.
Or is- right, well, she said.
Domiciled
Yeah,
residents.
Eastham, but that's just the commercial.
That's
that
just
are licensed.
commercial.
They don't.
So
do
I
it
just
for
want to make sure that that
recreational.
is what Eastham is as well.
Yep.
Great. No problems.
Just one question. So for example, the South Dock now have
What is
number one on the list. He's non-resident.
Is that commercial?
When it comes up, yes, he's commercial. So if it comes up,
When you say he's
He
a
will not get it.
non-resident, he's a Orleans.
Not,
No.
not Orleans, not Eastham.
and he's been on the list since 2019.
All right, we have
I'm
no-
sorry, but
no.
you know, this is the South Dock, which is a commercial dock.
Yes,
Okay,
Why?
and he is on the first one on the waiting list.
yes,
And is he recreational or commercial?
commercial.
He's commercial.
Yes.
And is he in Orleans or Eastham?
Nope.
No.
Okay. I just want to clarify before
Yeah, no, yeah, he's,
before it comes up.
Let them know so you don't have.
very
Here.
sorry we changed the regulation
Welcome.
before he got us.
He's welcome to move to Eastham.
Suzanne?
I was just curious, is it another closer neighboring town? I just,
Brewster.
But yeah.
yeah,
since
no,
it's
I'm not,
them. Yeah.
just curious.
I just know, I know it's coming up, so. I don't-
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Is there any further questions from the select board? Are there questions for the board from?
Has Shana gotten through all her changes?
No.
She doesn't look sure.
Well, that was just
I-
for dockage. We're only
Yeah, but
on,
we
right?
were on the
Yeah.
docket, so we didn't talk about the wait list.
Okay.
I didn't mean to.
No, this is good. Yeah, help me.
So for the waiting list, we wanted to ensure that the moorings are used and maintained, so we have a few changes that we've proposed, not as many as the dockage, right? Oh, wait, yeah, looking at the mooring regulations, where's the waiting list? So for the waiting list, we are establishing a self-dock waiting list for commercial use, as we discussed, for residents of Eastham or Orleans. We set a regulation that when they are offered a slip, they are providing their commercial documentation. They're given a year to get a vessel if they're accepting a slip. We're allowing a one-time deferral of a slip. So if you're not ready to take the slip, you can defer, keep your name on the list, but if we offer it a second time and you don't take it, you have to reapply to be on the waiting list and you're placed at the end of the list. We are having a minimum age of 16 to apply to be on the waiting list. And that's because people were signing up, very young children to be on the waiting list. So
3 years old.
we do have some requirements for that, but that pretty much covers the main aspects of the waiting list changes. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Scott?
Just the one question that came in for the service
Permit?
member that's
Yeah.
active duty.
Oh, yeah.
So I think everyone received that email, and if you
Yes.
didn't, yeah, everyone, okay. Does anyone want to have a question or comment? I usually open up to the board first.
Yeah,
So,
well,
Amy.
Jamie and I talked about this earlier and, I can't see an indefinite postponement of not taking it, but there's got to be a way that we can kind of keep them in the flow if they are on active duty.
Well,
I think-
Active duty or active reserve, I think we could kind of use the Service Members Civil Relief Act of 1940, so that would. Yeah, so as service to our country, they're not able to be here for whatever reason, be stationed, assigned or whatnot.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you
So if,
get called away, your job is still.
Right,
safe.
right,
yeah,
that's
sort of
first
thing, yeah.
priority, so I
Mhm.
think we should honor that. I don't know if he's the only one or not, but
Jerry?
can you simply change it that if you're deferring because you're on active duty, it doesn't count as your first refusal?
correct.
Just
And,
make
and,
it that simple.
and I'm sure they'll give us a copy of their military ID to show that. they
Now,
were
is that
in-
active or deployment? I'm sorry, I just.
Well, that's the same thing.
Oh, it's the same, is it the
That's
same thing?
When
Okay,
you've been activated, reserve.
are deployed.
Yeah, you are deployed.
You're
Okay.
active duty, full-time or active reserve, which you're called upon to go. here or
Okay.
there.
okay. So how long do we basically do the deferment then?
Well, again, it just doesn't count.
It didn't count, so the individual would just stay on the waiting list.
Until they were no
If it
longer
came
active
up-
duty?
If it came up and the person is still on active duty, you stay on the waiting list, but it doesn't count, so. it
Okay.
would
Well, if they
be-
were come off active duty, they have one defer and they
Then-
fall in with
then
They
everybody
still
else.
have the one deferral when it comes.
Okay.
up.
Good idea.
That makes sense.
The slip would not be empty.
No, it would go to the next
We would just
person.
ask them on-
They would just stay at the
Yep.
top. Okay, that makes sense.
No, that's a good.
Instead of kicking them off for
Right,
service.
exactly,
Right.
which yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Nobody wants to do that.
I had one question about the wait list and I don't remember, I forget all the things we discussed with this. Had we discussed one wait list per household too, or was that just,
That was slips. I believe.
that was that just slips? I just couldn't remember if that was something we had said or not. Okay. All right,
We
I
did
don't-
discuss it,
Yeah.
didn't we?
But I don't think it matters. I
Doesn't
mean,
yeah, it doesn't matter,
if I
because once
have
you get it,
me
that's
and my
right,
kids,
everyone's
you
off.
know, the household on there, I can't
Right.
take it because I already have one.
You're right,
So I don't think it matters.
correct. Okay. Any other questions from the select board? Okay, questions for the select board or more? Do you have any other things? Okay, then I will open it to public question or comment and if anyone would like to speak, I usually ask to keep it within like 3 minutes or so. And that ideally be a direct question or comment for staff. Do we have anyone? Is there anyone on Zoom? No. Okay,
Oh, wait, there,
got one.
I think there is a little hand. up. Is there?
So Patrick Fay, I'll promote you to be able to talk in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1.
okay.
Okay, Patrick.
All right, Patrick, we'll give 3 minutes for public comment. All right, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. One quick comment or more of a question. How come it's limited to one slip per household? I know when you talk about the parking spaces, for example, it's a similar high demand, especially for the ocean beaches to get a parking pass, but we allow more than one person in the household to get a beach sticker. Where in my situation, my kids are older and, you know, we'd be voting separately. So if they've been on the waiting list for many years, and now I would have to give up my slip so they could get a slip.
Okay. Does someone from the select board want to respond since we talked about this or?
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Okay.
You know, I just would say that we don't have very many slips. It's a very, very limited resource. And I assume that if, you know, even parking spaces, we limit it now. We have some people have 20 people on a trust. They can't get 20 beach stickers. So, you know, we have limited even the car stickers in that sense because of our limits for parking. So this resource is much smaller and we want as many different people to be able to enjoy it as possible.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Suzanne?
No, and I'll add if, you know, if through the chair, if the children are adults and they're grown, then perhaps they could submit one for their household if they're Eastham residents. And another difference of boat slips and parking spots is your boat slip is there, it's just your boat all day, every day, and parking spots, they cycle
Rotate.
through. You can wait
Yeah.
until someone leaves, maybe someone's there for a couple hours, leaves, come back. So there's more movement in our parking spaces than boat slips.
Thank you, Suzanne. You good, Sheena? or-
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
all right.
Can I make one more comment or am I still?
Sure, so I'll give you 2 more minutes.
It's quick. So they've been on the waiting list for a long time and, you know, paying every year. And So now we're just gonna, there's no grandfather at all. They're just gonna be kicked off the list.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we have a similar situation with the commercial docks too that we were just discussing. That the individual is next in line, but not going to be eligible because of the new regulation. Unfortunately, these regulations haven't been touched in quite some time, and it did get out of hand with the wait list the way it is. And part of fixing that problem, you run into folks that, you know, unfortunately are going to get stuck in the regulation change. So unfortunately, yes. And I do have Art, yep.
They're not going to be thrown off the wait list. They'll
Okay.
stay on the wait list.
Okay.
But if they come up and you still have, and they still live in your household and you still have a slip, they'll then come off. They won't get one,
Right.
but they won't be thrown off the wait list. So if they're on the wait list and by the time they come up, you're gone, then they would be able to get one.
Or they move some.
Or they have their
move.
own
They have
residence.
Their own household. If they're in their own household, then they would be able to get one.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Art. I messed that up. Amy?
Just a quick question. What do we charge for the yearly
15.
$15? So, you know, I
Should
mean,
charge more.
yeah, like
Okay.
Art said, I guess they could continue on the wait list if they want. $15 a year, it's not like we've been charging hundreds of dollars to be on the wait list, so.
All right. Any others? Okay, seeing none, I'm gonna move on to see if anyone else had any questions or comments. Thanks for speaking. All right, seeing no others. I think we can accept a motion with, oops, that was the timer. I think we can accept a motion with the changes to accept.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we improve what am I gonna call it? The Rock Harbor dockage and wait list regulations with the changes that we have recommended.
Second,
Okay, I have a second. No other discussion. I will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Good work. You guys did a lot of work.
Yeah,
on this.
thank you
Thank
so
you very,
much.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we go to
Very much.
more.
Yep, we are not
Yeah.
done. Okay, Shayna,
the whole page on this.
appointments. So this is mooring regulations discussion with Shayna. Brogan's still up there and Scott Richards. So I will continue.
So we did recently discuss the moorings and decided after a meeting with the Natural Resources Department and the DPW that we needed a few changes. So the changes are kind of similar to the Rock Harbor regulations. We would like the moorings to be used and maintained and not underutilized. So we have a few changes. Basically, so the first change is that we would require that the removal of moorings be the responsibility of the mooring owner, which we pretty much do anyways, but we decided to put that in the regulations. We have a regulation for unutilized moorings, which allows for the mooring to be left unutilized for up to one season before their mooring permit is then revoked or not renewed. And that's for areas that have waiting lists. So that would be Collins Landing, Hemingway Landing, and
Great Pond.
Collins and Hemingway or
Great Pond.
Great Pond.
So that's that one. And then we have no subletting or rental of moorings or mooring permits. We have vessels may not be stored on any beach or town landing unattended. And then we have no advertising of businesses or putting up signage on your boats or vessels. We have only one vessel may be placed on a mooring at any one time, which is pretty much not allowed at this point, but it was brought to our attention that it's not in the regulations. And then the last change, I believe, is that applicants currently are placing their moorings kind of all throughout Cape Cod Bay. Not knowing that people may own to mean low water, so they may be in front of a property owner property. So what we're proposing is that we have on the mooring application that when you apply for a mooring, you either need to submit a letter that states that you have permission to place your mooring on a private property owner's tidal flat area, or you're doing it at your own risk. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm gonna open this up to the board. I'm gonna kind of go down the line, so
Just starting here.
sure, go ahead.
The last one that you talked about. I started this discussion because of the fact that there are a number of moorings. And in the past, the property owners have not been asked if people can put a mooring on their property. And so I like the fact that you're going to require permission. What I'm not crazy about the fact is that you say, if you haven't got that, we're still going to give you the mooring, but it's your own risk. I don't see why you're just not saying you have to have that permission before you can do it.
Yeah, we thought about that and we figured it was gonna displace a lot of people, because we talked to the rec department, they're like, you know, we really shouldn't be moving these moorings in front of the town beaches because it becomes a swimming issue.
Mhm.
So we were trying to figure out where are we gonna have all of these moorings moved to. So we figured, you know, that might be a medium where the house may not even be occupied by the owner, it's just used as a waterfront rental. And you know, the people have been putting it there for however long. But
And the other thing is town council has opined that without really doing deed research, title research, you know, we don't know whether that property owner necessarily has the right to give permission or not give permission in some cases. It's more complicated than it seems. And so, you know, the town doing due diligence and doing title searches on all those properties is not feasible either. So it's kind of, I agree that it's an awkward situation, but I don't have a better.
But what you said in the policy is that if they do put it on someone's property, that individual would call someone
Mhm.
and say, I don't want that on my property, it needs to be removed.
And at that time,
Yeah,
they
at the
have to
owner's
prove
expense.
that they actually own
Yeah.
out in the
I
flats.
understand that.
Yeah,
Does that include moorings that are already in place?
Yes,
Yes.
so if they come to me. They have to show proof that you allowed them to place a mooring. If they can't prove that, then they have to remove it.
Well,
But
just,
it says the opposite. But it said the homeowner has to prove.
Upland
they own-
landowner,
Yes.
The landowner has to prove they
they own
own the
so
mean
far.
low water.
Like if a
Well-
complaint were to come in, is the burden of proof on the homeowner to prove that they own to that point? And if so,
Yeah.
then the mooring will be removed.
They have to prove to us,
Yeah.
in order to exercise those property rights, they have to prove to us that they have them.
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
And then we will remove the mooring.
Okay. I think that makes
Who
sense.
Who removes the mooring?
We
the
do.
boat owner.
The
Oh,
boat
we do.
owner or the town, you know, the
We
town.
would
with
ask
the
them
boat
to
owner.
remove.
Yeah.
The mooring.
it's their responsibility to move them,
Mooring owner.
yes.
Do I have questions related to just this topic?
Oh, the
Yes.
That we're just talking about right
front
now?
of the property, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I just want to try to stay on topic. So Jerry,
Can someone put a mooring beyond mean low water? And what do you
Be
do with
dangerous.
that?
Where you're talking 100 rods or 1,650 feet, so that then you're starting to impede the navigable waterway. So then walking out, swimming out, that's a hazard within itself also. So it's a little excessive to keep going out. Then we get into navigable waterways.
So we would not allow that
No.
because of other reasons, not the fact that.
Right.
I have-
public,
I own
yeah.
I own stuff,
Correct.
it's public waterway.
Right.
That was the only question.
Suzanne?
I guess I have two questions. One is. So we don't actually know how many people own Tamina Water. And so I guess I'm wondering what happens to our moorings if, you know, what if it ends up being that it's just like one person's house doesn't own to mean more water, and I'm just worried about losing moorings over this for
You,
people.
you may lose moorings over this, but it's their legal right to
Right.
take that mooring away.
Right.
And I think, you know, right now we have a situation where mostly it works out okay. And we have a few property owners who exercise their rights and say they don't want it, and they prove to us that, and we restrict it, but it hasn't happened that much that,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I just didn't want people to start like moving all of their moorings into one area, and then the person was like, okay, well, I was fine with 2 moorings, but now it's 7, and
Then you may see that where,
They don't own,
Yeah.
yeah.
and I guess my other question is, when people have property rights to mean load water, do they pay taxes on that area? Property taxes?
that I cannot answer.
I don't believe they pay taxes on that extra land, but I can assure you that they pay taxes for that view.
My understanding from a discussion we had, I don't want to, was it a zoning meeting? That they get a reduced tax rate for the property that's underwater,
Oh, okay.
okay?
That makes sense.
But it's, now that, we may be wrong, but that's what we understood. So the total tax includes one for the dwelling and then one for the certain amount for that property that's underwater.
And just to further that, although we are kind of going in zoning world, but they are allowed to build up to the full size of the property though. So when they decide what size their lot is for building, it includes the cheaper rate land, the land underwater. Just letting you know.
That's kind of weird.
So, you know, I think that the message is for folks that may be in a position where they see a mooring out there to stop and ask yourself, is that okay? Because I mean, you know, this is Cape Cod, and parts of these things are what make Cape Cod what it is, and historically have made Cape Cod what it is. Boats, fishing, commercial fishing, recreational boat use, moorings. If you get rid of all the moorings, I guess you kind of just get rid of some of Cape Cod. So you really want to think about what you're doing when you decide that it is problematic for you. You really decide, you know, why is it problematic?
It's really not a big problem.
Can I
You
comment?
guys are talking about it a lot, and I
Right.
understand why. But honestly, it has not been a huge issue.
I just,
When it comes up, it's a taxing issue because we have to do all this legal stuff,
Mhm.
but really I don't think we've had more than 3 since I've been TA in 7 years. No, since here, I've been here in 7 years.
okay,
So I don't want to make it more than
Than
it
it
is
is. Okay.
because that just underlines it more.
okay. So then I will move the questions on to the next topic. There were other questions regarding this, so we'll move on to those other questions. I think
Are
Amy
you,
was.
are you finished then?
Yes, thank you.
So I was looking at some of the mooring areas, and I asked Shayna to send me, you know, some maps or something that delineated where these mooring fields are. And, you know, she sent like an estimation of where they are. We don't really have it mapped out. So I'm curious how we can limit it and have a wait list right now when the boundaries aren't really set as to where these mooring fields are. Because there's a smattering of moorings from, you know, Goose Hummock to,
And we really should, I mean, the question that I
Mark.
had once I read these is, you know, we're getting our stuff together here.
Yeah.
And we really should map out some mooring areas because I think probably some of them are too close to other moorings and, you know, we have to work all that out.
Well, the distances are all good. If we start mapping it out, then we're going to give permission to put on other people property when we should, you know what I mean? So
Right,
we're
we don't
gonna
want to
get
do
into
that either, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, just going
So-
to
The town
landings
landings.
where we
Yeah.
have the waiting list off of town property.
Yeah.
We could look at that, because they are kind of crowded in front of
right,
Hemingway and
Mhm.
Collins,
And
and that's
Collins
why
were
we have
there.
the waiting list in that immediate
Yep.
area. So
yeah, so immediate area though, but what does that mean? Because I see you also have a a town cove category, and is just everything else other than,
That's everything else. So off of Collins and Hemingway, we're restricted because of the shell fishing in that area. The state has put regulation on not exceed 20, or we have to go through a exemption process for usually for larger boats with waste and et cetera. So any utilized commercial shellfish area or just shellfish, recreational or commercial,
okay,
we had to limit that. So we decided to limit it to
gotcha.
20,
No. I
and
get it. That's right. I remember you saying that last
that
time you were here now, and
exempts us from
That makes sense.
have to do all that.
Okay.
So
okay. Okay, so my other question then is, as
plus we
far
don't
as,
have the room. if
Yeah.
you've seen,
We
so.
just don't.
right, no, definitely. The areas, you talk about subletting. I know, sure, I'm gonna draw some daggers for this. Goose Hummock. I mean, they have moorings well within the waters of Eastham that they sublet for like $1,400 a season.
Yeah, some
But-
towns do allow it.
but
they
they're in
don't
Eastham.
allow Individuals they're in Eastham?
They're in Eastham. Anything north of that the Goose Hummock building is town of Eastham. And there's probably 20 moorings there that they sublet.
Do we give Goose Hummock mooring permits?
They come through Orleans.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
have to look at the town line there.
Yeah, because it
Um,
comes straight out from that edge of that big Goose Hummock building, straight out to the middle of Town Cove. And then goes up the middle of Cove out. So that's, I think
Amy's
something,
thinking we could reclaim some of that.
well,
Yeah, so kind of to your point, I looked at a few towns and they don't allow it. It's prohibited for an individual to sublet their mooring in the towns I looked at was Dennis, Wellfleet, and another town nearby. And but they did, like Orleans, outline if you're a marina.
right, a
You
marina
can-
or a sailing club,
Yes.
which that's there too, the yacht club and Goose Hummock, but that's in their water, not,
Not our- not- yeah,
not
That's not our
over
language.
on our side.
Well, we can look at that.
Yeah. So, along that line, I mean, this is a lot more you're adding to this. Are we gonna beef up, the department, have a little more enforcement, or what's, it's a lot more to keep track of, that's for sure.
Can we?
I just wondered if
There's no-
What the plan
with-
is.
No, we added
this-
some summer staff, but I think DPW stole them last year. I don't know.
part
We'll
of the-
talk about it, not
Okay.
this year, probably.
All right. And some of the vessel storage, you put some pictures in the packet. Like there was one that showed a bunch of, there was a boat and some kayaks, and
Yeah.
canoe and dinghies. That's actually private property. So are we limiting it on what private property can?
That's a question that we need to pose to town council as to how far the jurisdiction is for the harbor master to be able to enforce that,
Yeah.
because it does look like in this picture I sent that it's below mean high water. So it becomes a question that we need to ask town council. if
Okay.
That can be enforced.
Because they become a hazard when they're out floating around after
Exactly.
a storm and that sort of thing. I've retrieved a few boats for people that, they end up, and we don't have any vessel storage at Collins still, right? No, so that's pretty much on your own,
Do one second.
Cause it's
risk.
private on that side of the boat
that
ramp.
side.
So
But I
that's where
actually
they
put
have the
mine
contact.
on the other side.
When the landowner has called before, he says, as long as it's neat.
Yeah.
And they ask, he's okay with it. It's when they start making a mess, that's when he gets
Hmm.
agitated with them, so.
Should I ask about that?
Yeah, when the
Follow
motor-
up to your boat storage.
Yeah.
follow-
Yeah, I think that's,
I
think
feel
that's-
like conservation probably has some feelings about boats being stored in that area. I know when applications came up, that usually was discussed, so I don't know what. to
below
do
the
about
mean.
that. Yeah, storing anything within a
Fun.
buffer would come under some sort of scrutiny, so.
Yeah, if we find from town council that it's not within the harbor master's jurisdiction, then we can definitely refer the information to the conservation department, because I think in order to notify all of these properties, you kind of have to pick them all out and send them all a letter and have them all go to the meeting and things.
All right, other questions? Should I ask?
Oh,
that?
and we
Yeah.
talked about the taxpayers
Oh, on the wait.
for this too, I think,
Yeah.
either,
Vessel storage.
vessel storage, moorings. All of it,
Yes,
East
and that
Ham.
should just be East,
or-
is it Orleans too?
Well, I think in the saltwater, those are shared, so I think that should
But
remain
vessel
shared.
storage should just stay.
But vessel storage, like on Great Pond, obviously not other towns, maybe.
So just,
Just the
East Ham and
saltwater, could be East
Orleans.
Ham and Orleans taxpayers and or residents. I don't know how many we get from other towns, say that want to store their either mooring or vessel storage.
There's a few from outside East Ham.
Even, are they non-resident taxpayers or are they,
We've had some, yes.
yeah, well, I know non-residents do it, but we've had some other like Brewster or further.
right,
yeah,
that's what I think we're more
yeah,
concerned
that's,
about.
yeah,
And
because,
nothing restricted them from,
right, that's why I'm saying I think we really need to.
We need that language in
Because it's
this
such
too.
a limited, I know we're increasing every year, but
and another question always comes up is increase the spots, which we just don't have the footprint
Right,
to
right.
do that.
That's why we're doing the regulation.
Then a lot of them, I get a lot on ages, because of physically able to.
Yes.
Not able to take your kayak in and out of your car every time you go. So X amount above a certain age, and so I don't know if it's more the luck of the draw,
Yeah.
so.
So I think that we would want to see those updates in this. So if we do approve, it would be with those contingencies again.
How about, are you guys okay with the no subletting or rental of moorings? Because we have
Yes.
had that in the past as an issue.
yeah, definitely,
Okay, good.
definitely. It shouldn't, yeah.
It does,
should be able
is
to
that
turn
language
over
in the vessel storage too? Because that is an issue.
For vessel storage oh, that's right. There were some people that were,
Yeah, so that language.
The advertising,
well, no, they were
Subletting
subletting
their
their,
kayak parking spot.
right?
Oh, my dear God.
They were selling their vessel storage permit basically to somebody else.
It's like Ticketmaster.
Yeah,
America.
somebody was bragging about it down on.
Oh,
Lord, right at Great Pond. Well, you can't do that with a beach sticker, so
Oh,
you should
my
be able to do it with
No, I agree with Amy. I
With
think
the
that
vessel
language should
storage
be-
permit.
Shouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. So we'll want to change, make sure that language is in vessel storage too.
Could ask the
Yes.
parking question because
Yeah.
Christine's here.
And I am going to ask one more question, Christine. There was this lovely photo that I encounter all the time in the summer because I paddle out there. Hemingway, the parking.
Oh, on the road?
Yes, it is an issue and I think
You did a
Christine,
great job with the pictures.
yeah,
They all
wanted,
sent them in,
Yeah.
compiled them all.
I'm sure. So I don't know if Christine wants to speak to that or if Shayna or,
It's actually something that all of us
Great.
have been talking about. So
Yeah.
we're gonna come to you again, I think, with a few other areas that we wanted to talk about in regards to putting up some no parking or restricting some.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay, so this was like a little
These
preview.
regulations are the beach regulations. These,
It'd be the beach.
Yeah, it's just like,
that's what I thought, yeah.
But I think this just added to the fact of what they were showing, where it's just getting.
And I think
It's
we
a
have to
little-
do some.
Both
like we
sides of
did
the
at
road now.
Wiley.
It used to be one side. of the
that's what
road.
I was thinking is this is just like Wiley.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because, yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I work at the visitor center. And there's a lot of people that come in and ask where they can put their kayaks into the water. Okay, they can't put it in the town landing because they can't park there because they don't have a parking sticker. Okay, so at the visitor center, we direct them to Hemingway. And we tell them, you can't park in the parking lot, but you can park on the street.
Oh, you're gonna have to.
Yeah.
No
And-
wonder we have that
Jeez.
problem.
Well, it's people that are coming into the area have no other place to put their kayaks in. So because parking has been allowed on the street, we tell them they can put in there.
Well, can't they put it at the visitor center?
You've got to climb all the way down that hill. You
Uh-huh.
got to park in the parking lot, carry the kayak all the way past the
It's a
amphitheater,
pretty long.
down the
This is a long
hill,
walk too.
down the hill. No, because they
They drop
load
off.
it in and then they come back. and
Oh,
They
park.
block up I know, they block up that area.
We
for-
tell them in the visitor center, you can put it in Salt Pond, you just got to take it down the path. But they're taking it from that parking lot down
Mhm.
to the trail to be able to put it in. So we do tell them to go there. So if we come up with something, it would be nice if we could have a place where non-residents could park, and you could limit the amount of parking. But that gives those people the ability to use our waters, and they have no other way to do it. It's just my opinion.
Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I just have a quick, you mentioned Salt Pond, the visitor center. What if they could, at Salt Pond Landing,
They can't. You
they
need a
can,
Sticker.
no, they can go drop off their boat,
Yeah,
park at the visitor
That's true.
center and
Yeah,
walk right
walk
over
right
there.
down.
That's true.
yeah, there's a place to launch right there. I launch my paddleboard there all the time too.
I mean, it's a,
But it's also, I mean, our town revenue, we don't have a lot of revenue streams. And parking is a big one. And you know, when folks visit an area, I know when I go, like in Hawaii, you have to figure out where you're gonna park and you have to lug your surfboard and you just figure it out. Sometimes you throw a bicycle in the back of your car and you unload stuff with somebody and you park your car elsewhere and you ride your bike back. You just, when you're a visitor somewhere else, you have to figure it out, or you buy a parking pass. But I know when I travel, I'm always surprised when there's free parking, like, and I do think that the situation at Hemingway is dangerous. That road is so narrow without cars parked on both sides. Like when I leave there after I get up really early, when I leave there and it's still pretty early, it's dangerous driving down that road and it lets right out onto 6. And I think that's a hazard on top of everything.
And I don't think we're talking about, you're gonna come back with a proposal. It's not gonna say nobody can park on the road, but we're
Yeah.
gonna really
No, that would be
tighten it
fair.
up.
That would be fair.
Yeah.
That would be fair.
Okay.
I just don't want to totally eliminate.
I think we want to do what we try to do during fireworks. You can only park on one side of the road.
Yeah,
So the emergency vehicles can get through.
okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay,
That is
Thank
probably the busiest place.
It is.
it's
It is.
scary. All right, so then I will take a motion.
Okay, we do it before Sheena makes those changes?
It's
Well-
not a public hearing.
Not a public
you're right,
hearing.
this isn't the
So you
public
don't-
hearing for these. This is just the first.
Oh, that's right. So we
First
don't do this.
pass.
That's right.
You're
Sorry,
gonna Make them and come back.
come back. Okay.
We won't grill you. Thank you very much for all your.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a really,
Thanks, Dana. Scott,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Great. Yes.
few more months.
Thank you very much. I know it's gonna come up
Be out there.
fast. Thank you, Christine, too. All right, changing gears. We are now on land and we are going to be with the zoning task force for the update. We have Paul Lag and we have the task force chair, Mary Nee, here to present. And I did give everybody, there was an updated document too with some further information that should have been in front of your spots as well.
And thank you for your great patience.
And Kayla, did you get this to add maybe to the back of next week's pack? That way it's great. Thank you. All right. Oh my God, look at this.
I know, perfect. Good job.
Okay. All set?
The timing is good. Sorry, this is exciting for me.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Nee, Chair of the East Hamp's Residential Zoning Task Force. And Paul will be driving and he will also be correcting me when I misspeak, which could happen. And I just want to say thank you to the, I just want to do an introductory thing. I'd like to go through the entire deck and open up for questions unless in the interim, I say something and someone has a clarifying question, like, what do you mean by that? You know, I don't want to go on if someone is confused. There's an awful lot here, so I
Yeah,
sort
sorry, I
of
meant to say
apologize.
that, Mary. Yeah, we were gonna go through the whole presentation and save questions for the
Yeah.
end again, unless there was
Yeah.
like a clarification.
And so without further ado, we will get going. So the first, I would like to acknowledge the task force who has been working incredibly hard since last May. Met most recently at 8 o'clock this morning. So they're about to throw me out as chair, so you bear with me. But I would like to acknowledge, and several of them are here tonight, Carolyn McPherson, who is with us, who is the clerk for the task force, and she's also our representative from the Affordable Housing Trust. Bob Bruns, who is with us also tonight, and he is our representative from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Jim Kilvahan, who should be on the line. I'm not sure if he's here. He's actually out of town. He's a representative from the Planning Board. I want to do a shout out here before I forget. You're going to see a lot of data. We downloaded the assessor was very helpful in downloading all of the data into a master sheet that then got manipulated. It was this enormous file. And Jim basically spent the entire holiday season sifting and sorting and cutting. And so he's done enormous work. We would not be here tonight without his contribution. So I need to acknowledge that. We also have Kevin Gatlin, who's a member. He's a part-time resident who will be moving here in March. So we're thrilled about that. Jeff Kuzik, a local realtor who's a member, and Paul Legg, who has done a tremendous amount of work supporting us. So thank you all. I will try to move fast, and I know you've had this deck, and so I'm not going to try to read every word, so I'll keep going. The guiding policy framework. This is pretty important for us. When we started 2 years ago, we really, as a group, looked to established policy of the town. And the previous year, prior to the establishment of this group, the town had approved a strategic plan at town meeting. So we looked at that document and then subsequently looked at the housing production plan that got approved last June. And we really said, this is the policy direction. So our perspective was, how can we look at the zoning regulations to see where that zoning is supporting or not supporting the vision of the town? So that is sort of the policy construct here. And I would say that you will see, as we go through the deck, certain of our regulations are not in support of that vision. And so this is really where I think the inflection point of where do we want to go between our policy and our regulations. I will also just make one point in terms of the guiding framework. The overarching principles spoke to small town identity. I didn't cut and paste every word from the strategic plan, but references to our semi-rural character, the character of the town. Living in harmony with the environment was a very high priority, and enhanced community vibrancy. There were goals in the plan that spoke to environmental protection, community character, and diversity of housing. So we've taken this as the framework. I will say you'll see lots and lots of data, as I referenced, about land use and scale and mass of buildings. We had that database, we really scrubbed that data. We did not have the time or resources to do a deep dive into the issues of environmental impact of additional development. I personally did some website review. There's lots and lots of material out there, but we did not have that, and we did not have the time to do that. So I would leave you with, this is an important criteria for the town, and it is actually an important aspect of development. If you think about the fact that we have rising sea levels and lots of waterfront property, there are a lot of issues that are going to intersect between our environment, the tree canopy, how much impervious surfaces we have that might contribute to more stormwater runoff. There's lots and lots of impact. You will not see data on that aspect, but we acknowledge it's an important aspect, and we just like folks to keep that in mind as you think through the big picture of this direction. The topics we considered, we had a lot. I think there's 14 or so different topics. Some of this had to do with priority. Some of it had to do with resources and availability of information. There was a variety of reasons in time and resources. So we are coming tonight with a series of 3 categories in development limits, clear cutting, and planning board and ZBA criteria review. We have some administrative recommendations, in particular around short-term rentals. We're going to touch upon in our administrative recommendations, some of the historic structures and architectural guidelines, and the other topics we did not have the time or resources to do. So that was sort of the universe. When we came here last summer, we had this long list, and now this is where it's been trimmed down. In terms of the methodology, we received input from select board staff, town staff, task force members, planning board and ZBA members, the joint regulatory workshop last June, and just last Wednesday, I believe we had a workshop with the planning board and the ZBA. We reviewed the bylaws of other communities. There's a whole list there of lots of Cape Cod towns, Wellfleet, Provincetown, Truro, Harwich, Brewster, Orleans, Dennis, Barnstable, Yarmouth, and Chilmark and Martha's Vineyard, as well as other towns across the state. I'll come back to the point of some of the other towns later. We conferred with town council. I want to thank Jackie. One of our debriefs last year was we needed legal advice earlier, so we've gotten that. We may have gotten too much legal advice for Jackie's point of view, but we really got grounded in really all of the topics. What legally can we do? What have other towns done? And we also looked at a number of places where individuals have appealed town regulations and what courts have come back and said about what we can and cannot do. So the bottom line, I will say, is Carolyn, town council, has conceptually, I want to be careful because she hasn't looked at exact wording of exact warrant language, so I don't want to say she signed off, but conceptually, everything that's in this deck, she is telling us is within our legal parameters. So we've really, I feel very comfortable with that. We've scrubbed that this year. And then we collected, as I mentioned, from the assessing board, the Board of Health, permit applications, regulatory boards, and planning staff. We have a lot of data that is not necessarily computerized in a way that's easily that you can extract. So we will have some administrative recommendations about some data analysis and just some ongoing dashboard kind of information that would be good for the board. So with that background, I want to jump into the task force recommendations. And we'll start out with some key current conditions and key findings. Some of this, and again, I apologize, you've heard many of these issues before, so I'm just going to resurrect things that many of you already know. Rising property values are fueling gentrification and displacement of long-term Eastham residents. We saw this in the housing production plan. We're seeing a dramatic rise in the sale price of property between 2013 and 2022. We have, as you know, a significant percentage of our property is occupied by part-time residents, and we've really lost substantially the year-round rental market, and there's currently 0 vacancies here. So those market pressures still continue to exist. Right now, Eastham does not have any fixed limits guiding building mass or overall site coverage. We do have a history, and I will say the history when we look at other towns. For example, when we get into the methodology, we started around with this notion of looking at 15%, and we saw a number of other towns had the 15% site coverage as a standard. They also had development limits. One of the things we realized in this process is several of the towns around us measure their properties differently. They look at footprint to establish site coverage, and then people can add on and build up from that footprint. Whereas we look at gross floor area, which is the gross floor area within the building mass. So Eastham has traditionally, historically, had a more conservative approach to the size. And so between our small lots and a very conservative approach to our size, we have a town that has very small properties in the vast majority of our properties. And it's some of it is land area, and some of it has been our historical practice. We've had some regulatory practice, and some behaviors that have limited size. So that's just sort of a point of reference. But again, towns are moving towards development limits and even hard caps that we saw in Chilmark in Martha's Vineyard, where they spent a 10-year effort, but they did put a hard cap there. And interesting, we tried to get down this route. Oftentimes, and throughout this document, we tried to see where we could build off existing practice in Eastham without sort of recreating the wheel all the time. So one of the things we looked at was your new business district overlay zoning, which actually was interesting in that it had a structure that it has limits for the principal structure, it has limits for the accessory buildings, and it has limits for the impervious surfaces. So we looked at that and said, oh, could we mirror the residential properties to have sort of a similar structure? What you're going to see in the development proposal is, in some ways, we got halfway there. The principal structure and the accessory buildings, which we are calling the roof accessory, fall within the development limits we are proposing. We kicked around a lot and thought that, in particular, from an environmental point of view, looking at impervious surfaces could be a very good thing for the environment in terms of not having, just outside of the principal house, just having everything paved with whatever material would make it impervious. It was too difficult a reach for us to get and really figure out the implications and the regulations for that. It may be something to consider in the future, but those outdoor surfaces, we are not proposing anything at this time. So the development limits that you will see us discuss tonight speak to the principal structure plus the accessory structures. That's how we did the numbers. Again, Eastham's residential use is land use is very dense. We talked about this last year. More than 90% of our lots are less than 40,000 square feet, and a substantial number. And you'll see in following charts really show a huge concentration between 10 and 30,000 square feet. And because the lots are small, that's why the issue of mass and scale of building has such a huge impact when that grows because of this density. And I think we probably don't appreciate the density right now, because while we have these small lots, we also have very small homes on those lots.
Sorry,
Yes.
this is just clarification. On the document that we received earlier, there was also something about 13% of lots are less than 20,000 square feet. Did that just by accident get deleted? Or-
I have it here. Oh, it got deleted. Well,
Yeah.
it's still
That is
13%.
still valid. Okay.
Yeah.
It just,
It's 13, it's still, that number hasn't changed. It's
Okay.
just- We
We're
we
just-
were updating this today.
yeah, I figured it was probably.
And although 98% of the lots in Eastham have a building coverage of 15% or less, that historical percentage is starting to change. And you'll see this in one of our future slides, in that in recent years, planning board has been approving between maybe in higher ranges, not on everything, but we are starting to creep into 20, 22, 23% site coverage. So that is a trend. And we've heard this a lot from both the members of the task force who sit on these boards, as well as from other board members themselves. There is a sense on the planning board that we've heard directly that people feel that they are very constrained in what they can do in terms of shaping and limiting projects. There's some debate with our attorney who thinks we probably, under the existing rules, could do more. But I think I think the fact that there aren't limits, there's ambiguity, things are not tremendously defined. It is leaving board members feeling that they don't have a set of concrete rules. And and the subjectivity is an uncomfortable space for them. And what is happening because of that ambiguity is things are sort of moving forward, not being maybe as shaped and as challenged as historically they were. So, and this lack of clarity with the rules is further exacerbating the divergence between the strategic vision and what our practices are today. This next slide is, I just got this in the mail last Thursday from Coldwell Banker. So this is just sort of, this is what's being marketed to Eastham residents. I am not selling my house. They just blindly sent this to me, but I wanted to give folks a sense of what I would sort of, this is an indication of some of the market pressures that are pushing people. So again, Eastham's housing stock is concentrated in smaller lots. If you look at the chart on the left, this is the number of properties by lot size. You'll see right there about 4 down, we've got 64% of all the lots fall into the 20 to 29,000 square foot level. So that's a large concentration there. If you look to the right, the number of properties by net living area, you will see in the ranges between the 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, you've got 62% of the property. And if you look at everything under 3,000 square feet, I did the math quickly, was sitting here, that's 96% of our property. So you can see the concentration, how many smaller lots, larger number of either properties or net living area within those categories. The next one is we're reviewing, in review of special permit approvals, we have been recently permitting significant growth over the 15% site coverage. And 15%, I'll show you in the next slide, is really coming from a historical average. 83 property approvals were made between 2016 and 2021. And 43% of these approvals were over the historic over 15% level. And again, if you look down at these charts, the approvals or the projects that are coming before the planning and ZBA are fairly evenly distributed across the lots. But if you look at the right-hand chart, the percentage of approvals over the 15% site coverage, you can see it's those smaller lots where we have larger number of properties in which the occurrence of approvals over 15% are happening at a much higher level than prior. And this chart here gives you a real sense of this. And this is really one of the fundamentals. We looked at the issue of, there's really sort of 2 ways of looking at this. One is the policy question of, should there be development limits? We sort of talk about them as guardrails. Should there be some guardrails that sort of, we purposefully sort of look at our properties growing over time? But that's that's one policy question. Should we have guardrails? Should we have limits? The second question really is, and what should those limits be? One of the fundamental things about our proposal is that we are suggesting we would like to revert. The 15% is reverting us to levels that we were experiencing prior to 2021. As you can see, we have from 2016 to 2020, the site coverage was running between 11.8% and 14.3%. And then it suddenly started jumping. So we sort of did that 15% and said, can this be sort of the norm? Can we revert to what we were doing prior to 2021? And again, just to make the point, Eastham has a conservative standard in terms of how we measure property. I mean, but historically, we've stayed within these limits with that conservative standard. That's really that's really the next of which way we go with this. So the next page is going to give you all a headache. And I want to just do a little introduction because there's a lot of stuff on this page. And first of all, you have 2 options here. We had one option as of last Wednesday, and we got a lot of feedback from the combined ZBA and planning board. There was sort of just a visceral reaction that in the original option 1 proposal, the middle range the middle range limits, which in fact reflect the largest percentage of properties, people's reaction was, that feels way too large. So, so what we did was to go back and use the same methodology, and I won't go into all, there's this thing called the Uniform Code where you can make changes, and this is where Carolyn has guided us. We need to be consistent. You need to have a framework and a model and a rationale that's very consistent and very consistent within for different people, you know. We did ask the question, geez, can we have different limits at different lot levels? We were concerned about that. She came back and said, yes, that was permissible. But the scaling of lots that we've done has to be within a consistent framework overall. So that was one of the points. Let me go through some of these introductory points and I'll get right into the numbers. One of the things about this model with development limits, you may see a maximum limit at a certain size and say, oh my God, does that mean everybody's going to be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000? We sort of took a long view that this was a build out kind of thing. We're not expecting everyone rushing in to double and triple their homes, but we wanted to provide a pathway that people had clarity around what could happen. But also in this balance between wanting to preserve the culture and the aesthetic of our community is also a reality that there needs to be room for some growth. There absolutely needs to be room for some growth. On one level, 60% of our properties are over 40 years old. So if you look at that, just in terms of useful life of roof and heating systems and everything else, there's going to be a lot of redevelopment. And these properties were often built post-World War II. So technology, energy efficiency, all kinds of things were not even on the table, in addition to lifestyle. So we know that this pressure is going to continue. One of the things we tried to do in this proposal, and we'll go through it in some detail in a second, is to make sure that at every level, there is room for growth for folks, even though we have some guardrails on the outer edges of this. The model that you will see, it's probably easier at this point if I walk through. Let's walk through at least option one so you understand the various columns. So we've broken down the lot sizes. These are the ranges that we've done all our analysis and all our proposals. You can see how many properties fall into those lot sizes. Again, the 20 to 29,000 is really significant. What is the average lot size today within that category? That is the next column. And the average net living area. Just want to make a note, this is the primary structure only, not accessory, because the way the data is, we couldn't get accessory. It's not counted as we would like it. And this is the average site coverage that exists today on that fifth column. Today, if we look at those properties, the average site coverage ranges from a low of 5% in the largest lots up to 18% in the smaller lots. What you see in orange is the proposal, which is twofold. One is a building square foot limit. So if we look at the first category, 0 to 9999, there is a limit of 1,500. Compare that with the 1418. One of the things we did the reason we started scaling this and did not do an across the board percentage, we didn't do across the board percentage to say 15% or X number of square feet, which we saw in a lot of other models. We saw the models had square footage limits ranging from 4,500 to 6,000. And then they had 15% across the board. Putting aside the different methodology, when we looked at East Ham's lots and the percentage that are really large and the percentage that are really small, if we had taken one percentage and said it's 15% across the board or a maximum development limit of 6,000. It's, you know, it's huge difference from the conservatism we currently now have. So that brought us to Eastham is somewhat unique in this distribution of land. And we thought we should have unique proposals that respond to each one of these levels. So if someone were to ask you, you know, if someone were to ask you about this proposal, I would say it's a continuation of conservatism around building and scale that Eastham traditionally has had. But I would also say that it's been crafted in a way that responds to the each individual lot size in relationship to mass and scale. So some of these other charts came out of the workshop last week. Folks said, can you show us what this range would be? So in that first category, up to 10,000 square feet, you have a range, you know, because you get the greater of either the square footage or the percentage. That means your property, your primary structure could be 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, depending upon your lot size and where you fall in that range. Again, one of the members, I think, of the planning board or ZBA said, what's the break-even point? So we've put the break-even points here, which means for that first category, if you have a lot of 7,500 or 7,500 or more in that first category, you in fact will get more. You in fact 20% will in fact be a higher number than the 15. That's the point in which the percentage makes more sense for you than if you want to be bigger than just the minimums.
Does everybody grasp that?
Have I explained that correctly?
So
Okay.
It's a range.
Yeah, I understand the range. I'm just curious, is the point break, is that everybody below that?
Everybody,
Below 7,500 square
The-
feet of lot size
The
would
point,
actually see an increase, or is it a?
no, that's just kind of a tool to help. So the point break column really shows at what point, if you wanted to maximize your house size, if you, at that lot level, that's showing you that you're gonna go with the percentage over the square foot
I
limit.
see.
you're gonna be,
Right.
you're gonna have a
That's
big
the point
enough
where you
lot
do
to
percentage.
go for the 20% to
Got it.
get the 2,000.
Okay.
It was just another way to try to explain.
That's
Okay.
why I paused it to make sure, because I figured it was a
So
good
it's
point.
One or the other,
Yeah.
20%.
The category that's shaded doesn't make sense for option one. It pertains to option two. And then the rate of growth of site coverage. We wanted to say, what rate of growth do you have? And you'll see that in every category, the rate of growth increases from 11% upwards to 140% of growth. Now, the high category is sort of a, you know, the 140 is sort of a sticker, but it reflects the fact that on these very large lots that we now have, those that are 50,000 square feet or more, the average property size is only a little more than 3,600 square feet. That's the average. And clearly there are buildings that are bigger than that. So you have an average that is pretty low, so that when you increase the rate to a maximum, and this is where the hard cap would be, 6,000 is the hard cap maximum we are proposing. You get a number of 140,000, 140% increase. So that is the construct of option one. Again, we had reaction to some of these numbers the other day, and we went back again using the same methodology and said, can we address some of this middle section where there is most of the properties and people were feeling uncomfortable? And so again, we reworked the percentages and the building square footage, and you'll see it's a it's a difference of, you can see the revised change. We dropped 200 square feet, 600 square feet, 800 square feet, and 500 square feet. These are, these are the adjustments, and you can see the rate of growth that changes with that. We really haven't touched the top end, that smallest lot, and we haven't touched the largest lot. We looked at those middles
It leveled the curve, kind of.
and leveled the curve. So I'm going to keep going unless you have a clarifying question, because there's a lot here. Yes?
So when it says proposed max limit in square foot, is that the footprint or total living space.
That would be the gross area,
Okay.
gross area. Yes,
It's just, so the fourth column is the living area.
is the current,
Current average.
But
is the
that's a- but
current
it's li-
average.
But that's living area, not coverage.
No, that's your primary structure. So primary structures on those size lots have an average size of that column.
Does not include garage or covered porch.
That doesn't include garage and covered
Covered
porch. We
porch.
couldn't,
That's what you're getting at,
the,
Jerry.
the
Yeah.
assessing database didn't put that out.
Right, but so then column 5 is the site coverage, does that include the garage and covered porch?
No,
No.
So that doesn't. So column 6, that includes the
Yes.
garage and covered porch, et cetera.
Well, farmers
Okay.
porches don't count, correct?
correct.
Correct.
Pardon?
Farmers porches are
Don't count,
excluded from
they're
your current
excluded.
zoning. They don't count into the calculation of your
So-
gross area.
The data that we had to work with in the assessing database doesn't translate completely, or doesn't equate to the way that we calculate site coverage for planning and zoning board. So we had to work with the data that we had. So the fourth column, net living area is for the primary structure only.
Okay,
Which would
Which-
include an attached garage, because that is
would include an attached but not a detached.
not a
Correct.
detached garage.
Correct.
In column, now what am I, 6, site coverage, in your option 1, 20%, 16%. You're looking there to include everything. That would include a
Yes.
detached garage and so forth.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
Are we,
thank you.
you good? Okay. All right, we
Okay.
are good.
keep going.
Great.
So what you will see here is you will see that we took the percentage of site coverage. This is another way of illustrating it. The blue is the existing. The orange is the option number 1. And the green is option number 2. So globally, there is room to grow on average in every category. Now, there will be, and we don't know the exact number, we think of this 5,175 lots in town. I have that number in my brain. And we think there's somewhere in about 200, maybe 250, where you will find people that are exceeding these coverages today. They will fall into a category of pre-existing non-conforming, and there are processes for the boards to consider folks that have
How
been
many was that? Sorry.
it's
200 to 250.
200 to
250,
250,
okay.
roughly, you know.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. So, and so you can see that there's growth opportunities. What we've done in the next several slides is this is just a visual. This is me going on Redfin and downloading pictures. So you're seeing a current. So again, in the lot size that goes up to 10,000 square feet, on the left-hand side, you see a depiction of what a current 1,400 square foot property looks like. And next to it, we've taken a picture of a 2,000 square foot property. So again, this is just to give you a frame of reference. Some people can visualize 3,000 square feet, and other people, it's more of a project. The next one, 10,000 to 19,999. The current average is 1824. That's what you see within 20 square feet. That's what you see on the left. And the proposed max in option 1 and 2 is the 3,200 square feet. Is that for both 1 and 2, Paul?
Yeah, it was the 3,000, I think.
Yeah, two goes to the 3,000. So that is a 3,000 square foot property that I'm showing there. The lot size is 20,000 to 29,999. You will see on the left, the current average, which is 2294. And then you'll see option 1 and option 2. Option 1 would have this category go up to 4,500. That is we're showing a property that's about 100, 200 square feet less. And then you'll see option 2, which reduces the max down to 3,900, and you're seeing a property at 3,850. Going on, you'll see lot sizes of 30 to 39,999, the current, which is 28, 23 on the left. And you'll see option 1 at 5,600. The sample is 5553, and option 2 brings that down to 4,800 square feet. Sample is 4,602. I have to say, my filter was properties sold within the last 5 years in Eastham, and I had to go to these levels. We have no properties over 4,500 square feet that have been sold in the last 5 years. I had to take pictures from Chatham to get pictures. So these are, so in these categories here, these last few are not us.
Are outliers.
They're Chatham. So, and then if we go to the 40,000 to 49,999, you'll see the current average of 3,253 on the left. And option 1 would have a proposed max of 6,000 square feet. And the proposed option 2 would bring that down to 5,500 square feet.
And can I just ask, do we have any properties currently at 5,500?
I know we have,
You mean houses that are at 5,500?
Yeah.
No.
No, so nothing is there yet even. Okay.
I know one chart we had, one appendix we had, I think there was 5 properties over 4,500
But
square
nothing
feet.
at 5,500.
Not that we have.
There's one approved.
Well, we were doing this in the fall, so we didn't have all of 2022. So there could be
But-
one or two
No,
that come
this is-
through
yeah, this
that
is
are
good.
bigger than this. And then finally, the lot sizes of 50,000 plus. Right now, on these lot sizes, the average is a 3578 size house, square feet. And the proposed max is 6,000 on that very large lot. So you can visually get a sense of, and that's for option 1 or 2. And that would be, if people ask about the hard cap that's within this proposal, the 6,000 is in fact the hard cap that we're suggesting.
But like you said, there is still nothing at 55, so even the board could.
And Jamie, that's an important point. I'm going to, a few pages further, you're going to see things about criteria and definition. When we looked at this, the development limits, this wasn't the only thing we were hoping the planning boards and ZBA looked at. Although folks can come through with minimums and maximums with these percentages, there is still, on the other side of the equation, the neighborhood and the neighborhood character. We have not eliminated that from the definitions. And in fact, we've tried to define those a little bit more clearly. So it is not a situation that anyone who wants to build can say, I've got 50,000 square feet, 6,000 is it. That's one set of criteria, and that needs to be looked at. And, that obviously would have some weight if it's size wise, but then prevailing character of the neighborhood also has to be taken into consideration. So these are not by right, you have 6,000 square feet. You have, it is within the framework.
Mhm.
This just clarifying from our meeting. There was a discussion about people that had 8-acre lots would be limited to 6,000 square feet. And this whole process also includes the ability to go, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, includes the ability to get a special permit and by going to the ZBA for a square footage that is greater than those maximum limits.
Yeah.
Correct?
No, at this point,
In
the proposal doesn't include that.
I thought
It-
you said you could always go to the ZBA for variance.
Well, I think,
Variance. For variance,
So
yes.
you can go,
That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, no, well, we could go potentially for variance if there was a sort of a hardship that gets defined in state law and the specificity. After that meeting, and this is something we will take a hard look at, there's 1 or 2 maybe ownership that have these large amounts of land. I think we need to look because you can count them on one hand, how many there are. I think we really need to look at these. And the thing that I would suggest is, and we want to look at this, is maybe there should be some grandfathering provision in terms of process for those properties, potentially. But that's, we need to look at that category. Again, we're looking at, Paul, how many lots, how many?
It's under 10.
You know, I know
Like
this is
5 or
very
6.
few, but they're
It's very
very,
few.
very, very big lots.
Yep.
Yeah, it's.
And I know there was concern about restricting somebody, and I don't know why anybody would want a house that big. But there still was some concern about constricting somebody to 6,000 square feet when they have an 8-acre lot. I mean, it's gonna be lost in it.
And I think we're looking, you know,
Good.
and we haven't precluded people from proposing subdivisions and other things
Mhm.
on those large
Right,
lots.
That's what
Right.
they should do.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
But at this point, should this in theory pass, they could still apply for a variance.
yeah.
Okay.
And
That's
I'm
great.
sure some of those large lots are also in the seashore, which
Exactly.
they're already limited.
No,
Yes,
there's three.
they can only
They're not in the
expand by a
seashore,
third of
but-
what was there when they,
You're absolutely right, but these lots that we talked
oh,
about
they're not.
are not. in the
Okay,
seashore.
gotcha. I
There's
see.
at least 3 that are on the
At
bay.
least not. at
Three.
least
There's at
three.
least
They're
3
big
that
lots.
we've seen on the map. Okay. So, this next slide, this is some of the language that we are proposing. It's enhanced language over the existing language that's in the criteria. I'm not sure if it's going to be all that useful for me to read all of this, but
We can-
we didn't have a lot of definition. And so Paul did a lot of work in terms of evaluating how we can best define this. Jamie, are you missing one?
Yeah, we were just, one is partial.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
You didn't want me to see that other stuff. So. so
No, I cut out a few
He'll
pages.
just
for
talk
you,
about it if you give it to him.
So I think,
Thanks a lot.
again,
I appreciate
I'm
that.
here to help.
I
I'm here to help.
appreciate that.
there's no specific, again, these are more narrative descriptions. We
Thank you.
didn't have a lot of descriptions in the current situation. So I'm going to move on because I think there's some additional things here. The recommended amended definitions. One of the things we want to recommend is that lot area be, this was an earlier conversation about the low mean tide level, I think was referred to. We want to, right now, when someone comes in and has to go to the Conservation Commission and get certified for how many bedrooms their property can support before they go to the planning board, or sometimes depending upon which way they go. The Board of Health uses buildable upland as a standard. And that's how they determine whether you've got 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, excuse me. When we go to look at massing and scale for your development limits, you look at, right now, they're looking at total lot size. You could have half or more of your property completely underwater, but the total lot size is considered for development. So this is a problem, and one you can anticipate will get larger as, you know, coastal areas erode. You have land literally washing away where you have a smaller and smaller footprint, but there's development rights to build as if you had that large lot. So in terms of issues of limiting mass and scaling, preserving green space, this is one of those things that is a little contradictory. It also ends up being a little bit of a loophole that people sort of, when I was hearing sort of putting your children on waiting lists, I said, why didn't I think of that? How to work around this? But you get situations where you will have someone who will come in and be certified for the 3-bedroom house, but they come in with a proposal for the 6-bathroom home, and then there's the yoga studio or the media room and some other room. Well, we're all winking and blinking going, this is a 6-bedroom house, but you know, we're really permitting someone for 3 bedrooms. So you have, I think right now, the way the ruling is established, you sort of incentivize people to these kind of workarounds. And so we, and we've looked at Harwich and Chatham and Orleans. They're using the standard of buildable uplands. I think there's a couple others we found, but I didn't put the names in here. Site coverage ratio, again, there's a definition in there that when we make adjustments to lot area, we want to make sure that two of those are coincide. Site coverage. We have a situation where we very rarely get finished attics, but finished basements become an issue because they're calculated in your total gross floor space that you're allowed. And it's sort of, I mean, on one hand, we sat back and said, one of our primary concerns with mass and scale was how it was affecting the neighborhood, what people would see, what people would need to live next door. And it's sort of like, why do we care if they finish the basement? I mean, we care from a Board of Health point of view that they're not having a bedroom there. But why do we have this? And again, you find that this finished basement becomes a little bit of a tactic where if someone comes in for a house, let's say it's a 4,000 square foot home, but the neighbors are all up in arms that there's this big home, they've included a finished basement. So what happens when they say cut it back, they cut out the finished basement. So we never get the mass and scaling. So people can sort of play a little bit of a game here with the finished basement. But so I think between the two things of why do we care about it if we're not seeing it? And why do we want to incentivize this sort of loophole? We're recommending that it not be included.
What if there are bedrooms though in that? Is that?
Well, I mean, they would have to be approved by the Board of Health and then they can be, and if they violate that, if they finish a basement and really use it as a bedroom, that there would be enforcement to the Board of Health. It's not prohibiting a bedroom in the basement.
So that would still count as a square footage though, if they're a bed, no?
No, what this proposal would do, right now, the way we calculate your site coverage ratio is we include any all finished spaces. So finished basement would count, unfinished wouldn't. And what this proposal would be is to just take out basements and attics from the equation altogether, because it doesn't
Matter.
affect
Massing.
the intensity of the use of the lot. So, and that, like Mary said, the example is one way to really cut down your site coverage ratio and make it look a lot more less intrusive is to not finish out the basement. Then that comes out of your site coverage, the percentage comes way down, but in effect, you haven't affected anything on the
Right.
lot. You're still the same,
True.
same building footprint. So it was just one of these
I hear you.
things that came out of the discussion. And I think it's also, it kind of offsets the development limit too, because we're not punishing you by making you count the basement, so we're putting some limits in, but we're not making you count
It is an offset. Yeah.
the
So you
finished
might do a
space.
family room down there.
Sure.
that-
And we have one more question.
What about a walkout basement?
That would be excluded as well.
That wouldn't be included,
It wouldn't be. included.
Correct.
even though
You see it.
a portion of it is visible.
Well, you don't.
So if my house has got a walkout basement, okay, the basement.
But whether it's finished or unfinished, it doesn't matter what you see on the outside.
No, it does, because it's a walkout basement and you walk out. If you're in the back of the house, you can see all the levels. If you're in the
It's when you
front of
have,
the house-
when you have your
Yeah. it's 'cause-
geography that
because
goes
it's on the
downhill,
hill.
you can
So
see
in the
it.
back of the house, you could see it all. In the front of the house, you don't even know it's there.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's something that needs clarification or not.
Certainly, we could take it as a comment. We just thought it was cleaner,
No, I'm
just to eliminate the
I'm fine with
basements.
what you're saying. I'm just
Okay.
trying to make sure.
I think we
that-
should take away Art's basement.
Yeah.
What did she say now?
You take away your basement.
Okay.
We'll just drop your house.
And finally, neighborhood. Right now, neighborhood is undefined
Why don't
and
we do
we
appraisals next?
looked at we looked at the law, which says we have to notify everyone in a circumference of 300 square feet, essentially a football field all around you, and said, let's define that as neighborhood. Because right now you have a situation where because neighborhoods are undefined, sometimes you've got, clever lawyers that are finding the property 3/4 of a mile away saying, look at, it's sort of in the same area.
Big house.
So I mean, it gets to be played. the thing that we also want to include here is some discretion for the planning and ZBA, that while we will look at these sort of football fields, as I'm describing it, around a property, we also want to give them discretion that if a particular project comes in as part of it's part of a subdivision, maybe it has one road in and out, you know, it's a really condensed cul-de-sac, and that needs to be considered a neighborhood, just because, you know, you may only have one point of egress, and if you're at the end of the cul-de-sac, you're going to see a particular property every day of the week, every time you go out. So that's one of the things that we've wanted to do. Moving on, I keep trying to keep going.
There.
Where are we? Setbacks. So the one letter we got of the task force in the last 8 or 9 months was a complaint about pools. And we sort of referred the gentleman back because his complaints were more noise and nuisance, but he made a really compelling case about, he lives next to a rental, he understands it, but when you get a family who shows up at a rental, the kids want to be in the pool at 8 o'clock in the morning and they want to be in the pool at 8 o'clock at night, and there's a noise issue. So I just put that out because we are seeing a trend of more and more pools. So this could be an issue in terms of how we manage pools. What we did find was that although the building inspector is using a 12-foot setback as a standard from which to advise people, we've never codified the 12 feet. It's not codified. So we want to codify that 12 feet, which is the existing practice, but we also feel that pickleball and basketball courts and tennis courts and bocce courts should be part of that equation, because it's an intensity of a recreational use. It's different than a patio. It's different than a fire pit. It's an active recreational area. So we wanted to include that, as well as, you'll see this in the next slide, a requirement to maintain a 6-foot vegetative buffer on the side and rear lots. And I'll speak to that in a moment. Clear cutting. We do not have permits or regulations regarding clear cutting. This is one of those issues that if we did a lot of environmental analysis, I can tell you clear cutting is horrible environmentally, but that's just an acknowledgement it is. But we don't have, but it also is an abutter issue. We've heard from planning board members that when clear cutting comes in and that vegetative buffer that has been separating projects, we heard quite a bit about the development that's up on Route 6, that a lot of property owners had never seen or heard Route 6 till the area was clear cut, and suddenly their quality of life really was upended all around. So we want to have a permit. Undeveloped land, you would need a permit. And if you have developed land and you want to clear cut more than 50%, we're asking you to apply for a permit. And what that means is you would apply for a permit and you would come before the planning board for a site review. It is an opportunity. We're looking for this as an opportunity to have a dialogue with projects that say, talk to them about, you know, you can't clear cut your perimeter, but you certainly can clear. We're not asking you to save every scrub pine or everything, but we want to have a discussion about how it impacts the abutters. It's not a prohibition. You can't have a fence, but we're saying we need to have a review before suddenly it's down to the ground and there's nothing you can do about it. So, and one other thing, as we started to look at these clear cutting and vegetation bylaws around the state, many towns have gone a great way around the issues of, I call generally, tree protection. I mean, we have seen bylaws in which you need a permit to take anything down that has more than a breast height diameter of 12 inches. So there are some pretty restricted proposals. We did not want to go down that route, and we didn't feel that we had enough resources or time to really assess. There wasn't sort of a tree protection plan for the town that we could sort of look to and say, okay, how can zoning help that plan? But we did sort of step back after reading all these tree bylaws and said, you know, there was a term that was in several of them that they were called legacy trees. And we really looked and quite frankly, the inspiration was the 4 or 5 trees that are in front of Town Hall here. They have a breast diameter of 2 feet or more. They're healthy. They've been here forever. And we want an opportunity that someone would be coming in with this permit before just taking down a legacy tree. That is not to say you can never take down a legacy tree. In the language we want to write up, there's lots of exemptions. We're not asking you to keep a hazardous tree, a diseased tree, anything that has a public safety. Many of these towns have lots of exemptions. But we want to have a dialogue with you about these legacy trees. And if you're building a new house or totally rehabbing a new house, the tree may sit on the only spot that you can put a septic system. And so there's going to be times when the tree's going to go. I mean, as much as we want the tree. But again, right now, we don't even have a forum to have that conversation. So this from a tree perspective is sort of putting our toe in the water around some minimal protections for some of the largest, oldest, healthiest trees in our town. And there's much more work that can be done. I'm not sure it's the zoning task force, but maybe someone else that really needs to take up the mantle of what is our green canopy and what we need to do with that. And again, I think I mentioned this before, the perimeter vegetation within 6 feet. We want to keep this vegetation, some level of vegetation. People may want to take down, some may come in with a plan and say, I've got these horrible pines, they have to go, but there's a negotiation. Might you plant something differently? It just gives us the ability. So we just don't have neighbors waking up one day and suddenly all the trees are gone and they're listening to Route 6 again. So that's clear cutting. And then the administrative recommendations. We've looked at historic structures for 2 years in a row. They're really, I'll try to write this up in the report. There's an awful lot the town can do. It really isn't zoning. There's a lot of things the town can and probably should do. It's going to require some consultants. It's going to require a variety of things, but it was beyond us to do that. Short-term rentals were interesting, and I know this has come up a couple times with this select board. The question was, how is the short-term rentals working, and are we seeing the trends of hedge funds and investors coming in and buying up lots of property just to convert them to rentals? We're not seeing that right now. We've sat with the Board of Health. We've looked. There's really a handful of people that have more than one property that they're registering for rentals, and they're like known to people. So we don't think that that's happening. I should have backed up on this one to say Eastham is tremendously ahead of the curve. Prior to the state law, Chapter 64G, that was the short-term rental law that the Massachusetts legislature put in place 2 or 3 years ago. Eastham had already begun using their health regulations to register, monitor, and put in set of regulations for short-term rentals. So Eastham has been way ahead of the curve in doing that. The only aspect of the new law that we have not taken advantage of, and we did not recommend it be done this year, is a cap. You are allowed under law to cap your rentals. And the reason we did short-term rentals, you can cap those rentals. It's allowed. The only example I could find was a condominium in Everett that capped its rentals, but it was really funny. But you can cap it, but administratively, to move to, I don't know what we'd move to, a lottery system for rentals, or the administrative requirements to do that need a lot of thought. And then again, we were not seeing this advent. We're not seeing dramatic increases in the number of rentals. And we're not seeing investor owners. Having said that, we're not seeing it today, but we are recommending that there needs to be at least annually a report to this body about the trends in the analysis, because again, we need to think about if something starts pulling away from us, do we want to put the time and effort into a cap? I would say that there is some software and technology that the Board of Health could use that might give them more real-time data. They're doing, they're doing a lot of things manually, and they're doing it really well. If we want to be more on top of this, there are some efficiency things that they could do to maybe even be better. But I think the most important thing would be some regular reporting to the town administrator and the select board just to watch this. Again, with site plan and special permit review, we believe that the software exists and the database exists, and there's really a programmer that needs to come in. There could be reports that could be generated for every planning board meeting with punching a button if reports were developed. And I think it would give the boards really enhanced tools. So again, we'll write up that software recommendation. And finally, architectural guidelines. We actually went pretty far into this, but it's complicated. As Carolyn, the town council, has advised us, the issues of mass and scale have been heavily litigated, and we're on very solid ground with mass and scale. Architectural guidelines, you get into really tricky waters legally. If you try to tell someone how their house should look like, you can't really sort of get into what they call aesthetics too much. However, there are things you can do with scale and form that Cape Cod Commission has been working with certain, we looked at some examples in Craigville Beach and in Barnstable. There are some things we can do legally within this framework, again, that looks at mass and scale without getting into the nuances of, what color is your door. The only place you can actually do very specific aesthetics is you can do it in historical districts. So historical districts, you can write guidelines. We have guidelines. We don't have mandates in our historical districts. Legally, we could have very specific. I've been telling folks, in my past life in government, I spent a lot of time with the Beacon Hill Association. They have historical guidelines to your doorknob has to be appropriate. Your color of your door, what the screening, there is nothing you can do on the exterior of your building that is not prescribed by that organization. And it's been that way forever. So we don't do that. We're not proposing that, but we do think this is a very important topic for next year. So in summary,
Yay.
We
did a great job.
we think we're lacking alignment between our strategic vision and the protections our current zoning is providing. We think that's the key policy issue. We have ambiguity in the language and the definitions, and this lack of specificity is impeding our ability to manage growth. We do have rising home values that's fueling gentrification and displacement, and we believe this will just continue. This is a beautiful environment, and comparative to other towns around us, our land and our properties are still relatively inexpensive to other towns, not to our residents. So we still have those challenges. We know there's redevelopment that's going to happen. I think this is one of the critical things about the timing of this. Right now, less than 5% of the lots in this town represent lots in which folks are starting to get uncomfortable with the percentage of site coverage, the sort of 18, 20, 25% site coverage. That's only 5% of our lots. So this is an issue that when we've got 95, 96% that don't fall in this category, it is a good time to take a hard look at this, because when those large lots start becoming 10, 20, and 30%, you'll get into lots of politics and community issues, and change will be so much harder than if we take a look at this issue right now. And again, our development limits and associated changes and criteria, we believe they're reasonable guidelines. We believe they offer growth at every lot level. Again, with lot sizes that are more consistent with what we were approving prior to 2021. And finally, just that 5% I mentioned, it's going to be really hard to see this. So this is really hard, and it's hard to see you'll see little red dots along the bay in a few places. Those little red dots are the site coverage that's over 18% right now. So you can see, but everything that's in orange and yellow, right now, there are no regulatory limits. So there is nothing technically in the law and your current regulations that the colors of this map could change to all red. Because there are just no regulations that would prohibit that. There are no what we call guidelines. So I think this is, again, I said timing and all is really critical. So with that, and I've gone way over my time. I hope this is not the longest board meeting you've ever had, but
Yeah, it's just probably,
I'm sorry.
I think
No,
that
it's
you
not.
you did fine. You did
No,
fine.
it's-
Don't worry about it.
great because
It
I
was really
think
good.
it's
Very
been
good.
engaging and I think that we all needed all of that information to
Okay.
get to the conclusion and appreciate you doing it.
Thank you so much. I
Doing
mean,
data.
2 years. This is the second year.
Mhm.
You know, so first year you did what, 5 zone
Five, yeah.
bylaw changes?
This is incredible. Yeah, the amount of information, the amount of data that came out of this, the metrics, if you will.
Look at you go.
I know. I think it's just, it gives the foundation for the motivation behind the recommendation. So thank you. So I will open this up to the board.
Yeah, thank you very much. My first comment was that I thought, that I had written down anyway before the meeting, was I thought those sizes were too big. So I was very happy to see your option 2. I think that's much better. I would maybe prefer it to be even a little lower, but I get it. It's not some of those larger ones. There aren't that many properties. But I was happy to see the bulk of them get dropped down. Also the site coverage of the upland, because I know we've had even some recent approvals where they have a bunch of land and wetland, but that all counted as part of their lot size, which just seemed ridiculous to.
Have a house bigger than the actual. buildable.
Exactly, yeah. So, thank you. That's a lot of work and great presentation. I understood 99% of it.
Thank you.
He'll ask me just a couple little things.
That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And I'm so impressed. That is a lot of information to pull together in a couple of months. And it was very thorough and I couldn't have done that in that amount of time. So I'm very impressed with all of that information in your presentation. And I also really enjoy the option 2. And I like that you added the part about clear cutting and the vegetative buffers and some of our trees. And I know you didn't get into it, but I feel like one of those things that maybe got left in the 80s was don't cut down all of the trees and the impacts that trees have on protecting our climate. And I know a lot of people here, myself included, really appreciate the vegetative buffer between my house and your house. I don't really want you to see my house from the road, and I don't really want to see your house either, even if you have a very nice house. And so I really appreciated the fact that that was put in there. I thought it was reasonable. And I like the idea that it could start a conversation for somebody who was looking to maybe clear more than
50%.
we might, then their neighbors might enjoy, and to have that conversation. So, and I like the 24-inch diameter for the legacy trees. Again, because it seems like it would be easier to manage. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry.
Yeah, it's great. Just a couple of questions so I understand a little better when we go through.
Sure.
Define a little bit for me the vegetative buffer. What are we talking about? I mean, I'm looking at, you look at where I live, I mean, there's a farm behind me and there's nothing, but it was a farm. So there's 1 yard to the other. I mean, what's the vegetative buffer?
The goal is to really preserve the existing buffers that are in place now. And then that's kind of the primary goal, is to eliminate the clear cutting. And that's just something that comes up a lot. We see it a lot in planning board because somebody comes in and proposes a project. The next door neighbor says, this is a great project, but I think you should put screening in because I don't want to see it.
Right.
And then the neighbor says, well, you built your house 2 years ago and you clear cut your whole lot. So why do I have to put trees in to screen? So it gets into this back and forth and it puts the board in an awkward position because who should be responsible? And so that's one of the practical aspects of trying to do this. You can still go into those buffers and do some clearing, but you need to maintain
Right.
the vegetation. It also does another important thing from a site plan perspective is it eliminates someone putting their driveway in right along your property line, which again is another sore point that comes up. So
Okay.
Holds this
I understand. It's just,
lot lines.
just my history, man. I've written laws and I've written regulations and you just want to try and get it as clear cut as possible for them. So the 200 to 250 homes that currently are above the coverage limit, we're going to grandfather them. If they want to renovate, are they covered under it, or does the grandfather go through and cover them for any renovations they do?
Oh, it would.
well, the grandfathering of those lots is not something that's been in the proposal yet. So that's a point of discussion. So right now,
Good.
you
okay.
wouldn't,
You'll tell me when it's.
right? So right now, there isn't any legacy provision for that, other than if you are already over the limit. So what's going to happen if this moves forward is there'll be a number of properties they're already over the limit for whatever their lot size is. So that automatically makes them pre-existing non-conforming. So they have some legacy rights built in automatically under the state statute. So you're already over the limit. You're going to have the ability to go and still expand, but you have to get a special permit. And that puts a little more, that gives a little more leverage to the boards to push back to say if it's not appropriate.
Okay,
The other issue is the variance. So if you're under these limits and you want to expand, but you already conform, that creates a different situation where you would have to come for a variance. And that's an even higher bar to meet because you have to prove a hardship. But right now, I mean, this group hasn't discussed how to grandfather those
Right.
lots. And I think that was some of the feedback we wanted to get tonight.
that's, okay, there's no legal issue on what the nature of a neighborhood is. I mean, I haven't looked at the court stuff, but that's just kind of an amorphous statement, but there's no legal issue on that.
According to, I mean, we've run all this whole deck through town council, so there's no legal issue on that. I mean, right now we have no definition.
Right.
Right.
It gets defined, oftentimes it gets defined by the person who's proposing or their lawyer who's proposing to define
Okay.
what the neighborhood is.
All right, good. And one other, I know you have, and it's something long in the future, but something I think we all have to think about is sewage. If we put in a sewage system, it potentially changes Board of Health, a lot of potential. Have you considered that, and any ideas you've thought of that?
We did this based on your current regulations. I think if you have sewerage up and down Route 6, I mean, we're not dealing with commercial properties here, but obviously if there are residential properties that become sewered, I think this will have to be revisited in some way because, certain, for example, certain bylaws give you density bonuses, in some ways, when you've got wastewater, you can afford to have more density on Route 6,
Right.
whether you want to do affordable housing, workforce housing, or whatever. So we would have to come back. I think the board would either have to come back or do something around that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, sorry.
Did you want to go? Because Suzanne had her hand up, she already spoke, so if it's,
I'm sorry?
did you have a question?
Yeah, well, just comments. I like option 2. And I would not grandfather those lots.
Okay.
What would happen if, so if you don't grandfather them, just clarification so I can understand what that means.
what I think what you're saying is that if you have a lot, any lot that you have now has to fit into this criteria. The only thing that's grandfathered is lots that that right now
Are bigger.
exceed the criteria.
Right.
Yep.
But if it's, you have to fit in this criteria with your lot, if it's not already non-conforming. Because I think if you open it up
I
and
know,
grandfather
It's a
it,
Pandora's box.
you
Yeah.
have just.
Yeah.
You just
I think, yeah. I
away-
get-
erased everything you're trying to do.
Mhm.
Because it says, you know, most of those lots are gonna have a problem. They're just gonna go do what they want.
And again,
So,
I want to look at I want to look at the handful of lots. We looked at a couple the other day. I think you made the point, Art, that there's one huge lot, 8 or 9 acres. The person who owns that is not going to put a 6,000 square foot building in the middle of that and everything else is green. I mean, have no idea what their plans are, but it's probably not one house.
Right.
On 9 acres.
Okay, so I'm just, did you just want to reply?
Yeah, it's kind of related in terms of like the grandfathering in of what happens if someone demos a building. And so
Right.
I guess, so if the lot is non-conforming currently and exceeds the site coverage, if they tear it down, I feel like they should adhere
Bye-bye.
to
Yeah.
The new.
the new
Yeah.
That's my
stuff.
question, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then
Yes.
if they want to like, I don't know, remodel their property, is that where they would be, you wouldn't say, no, you have to take the room, the site,
No,
the area
To
away.
reduce your house, yeah,
Just
So I guess the grandfathering would be,
only in a
it
tear
can't
down.
exceed.
you can't exceed it, you can shuffle it around, I guess, on your property.
I'm sure people probably aren't going to demolish first and then ask for a permit second. They're probably going to come in with a plan to say, I'd like to demolish it and
Yeah,
rebuild this.
Right.
And at that point,
You
they
need-
would theoretically be eligible for whatever the limits were within that lot range.
Yeah, you have to get the approval first, otherwise you extinguish it's the same thing now with any pre-existing non-conforming. If you knock the building down,
Right.
you lose your rights. So you get the
Okay.
permit first before you do anything.
Okay. So then what was the question? Amy can go. So we're.
No, I
wondering
had the
about
same, I had the same
the-
exact question.
What
and
would
point.
we be grandfathering in?
That the house could exist, essentially.
And then if they wanted to make a change to it, it would just not be able to be any bigger than it currently is. Is that?
Well, I think the grandfathering issue, there's kind of keep it in two buckets. There's going to be some grandfathering legacy provisions created automatically if this goes through because the buildings that are already over their lot size limit.
Right.
And we have to accept they have legal right to maintain that ability. So that's one part of it. The other part is, do we want to address these larger lots where some may feel you have a 8-9 acre lot, should you be limited to a 6,000 square foot lot? So that was the other piece. And so we don't have a proposal to deal with that. So that would be somehow grandfathering those lots to be able to have larger houses. We haven't proposed that, and
I think,
that's what the issue came up at the workshop was, should we address that or not?
I think the sentiment of the board is that right now, as it is, yes, those larger lots would be restricted to the 6,000. If we feel like we need to revisit that next year, maybe we make that a priority, but that I think in the short term, they should be at that 6,000 square foot limit with the option to get a variance, not grandfathered. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, the way it would work is
That's what the board,
those
yeah.
lots would have to essentially play by the rules of the new. I mean, there's always going to be the option for someone who has the time and the resources to challenge that and say, I want a variance and there's a hardship and there's an extenuating circumstance, and that there's a regulatory route that plays out, but that's the exception, not the.
Right. Okay, so then we would do a no grandfather. Is the lean toward the board, correct?
Right, because the ones that are already built, say larger than what would be allowed,
Right.
There's no, it's not really grandfather, it's
Yeah.
pre-existing non-conforming,
Okay.
which isn't technically grandfathering, right?
Yeah, well, they retain the right to go to the planning board or the zoning board
Hmm.
if they want to expand. So you're already over the limit.
Right.
I still have, and I want to expand some more. It doesn't, you
Well-
have to go to get a special permit.
Right.
And you have to demonstrate to the board that it's not going to be detrimental to the neighborhood or to the surrounding
But-
area. So the burden, it's a burden of proof that's placed on you because you're already over the limit and you want to expand. So you have to go through
Right.
a process.
But what grandfather, if say we were to grandfather lots that weren't built yet. Like we have probably half-acre lots that you could put a 4,000 square foot house on. I mean, under today's permitting. And so we're not gonna carry that over.
No,
This
No,
would
no.
totally
This is just for
replace,
those
right?
200 to 250 lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? So just tell me what's next? Eventually you will come forward with some
Well,
re-
we would-
regs for us? I
well,
mean, for some.
yeah, we would
Something
really
or-
like any specific feedback because we need to get this in final, this is almost in final form. So we need to get this in final form and write a report. The next step, the regulatory step is that it goes to the planning board for a public hearing. Even though we've had a workshop, we would have a public hearing in March. And then the planning board could either recommend or recommend with amendments some proposal. It will then come back to this board because you would have to prove it before getting on the warrant. We are, once we get past tonight, we have a few issues we have to sort of finalize. And then we also, Paul has already begun drafting some of warrant language, transferring this into real warrant language. And we wanted to get some sort of report. It's going to be a little challenge because we're under the gun, some sort of report pulling off of this presentation with a few more additions that could actually be formally submitted to the town, could be posted on the website, can be available for everyone,
So,
like we did last time.
so what I might do then is kind of take some of the bigger topics and I might maybe ask for just a vote of opinion. So that you have an idea,
Yeah.
the lean of the board.
That would be helpful.
Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
So I think the first thing is the obvious, right? Option 1 versus option 2. So it looks like you have a unanimous option
look at
2
you guys
support.
go.
I liked that. That was very cute.
I know.
Okay, so option 2. I heard a little chatter about this. I'm just gonna bring it up. There's right now, the hard cap is 6,000. The data we heard, there are no houses at 5,500 square feet currently. And there are only 4 above 4,500. Do we want to reduce the cap to 5,500? It's just,
I'm
no,
a no.
okay. All right, so I think people are liking 6. Okay, that's okay. Next is the grandfather thing, which is confusing a bit, but it sounds like the board's lean is no grandfather. For the big
No
lots.
special carve outs other than the
Yeah.
pre-existing
Right.
non-conforming.
If you're in favor of that, let's do the 2 again, because it was just funny. Okay, great. All right, are there any other topics that you think you would prefer, you'd like more clarification, or you think those are the big ones?
Those are the big ones.
Can I ask a process question to the board? For expediency's sake, can you send this to the boards for a
Yes.
public hearing tonight?
Oh,
Because,
we told the planning and ZBA boards that they're getting this presentation once we send it to you.
Yes, yeah.
We're going to send it to them.
Yeah,
Should we formally vote to?
I think you
refer it
have
to the
to,
planning
you're gonna
board?
have to at some point, so you might
Okay.
as well do it now.
That's what the-
Then let's do it.
I'll make a motion. We refer the proposals put forth tonight to the planning board for public hearing.
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Then I really would be remiss if I don't mention one thing, and it's just that in the task force, we are of varying opinions. And it's sort of interesting. Where we're coming out, everyone's a little uncomfortable for different reasons. Is it too large? Is it too small? So people are coming at it differently. I think the constituency that may be real estate, investors, developers, I think it's important to know, I can look at this and say, I think Eastham is being incredibly innovative. No one has scaled property like this to customize it to their exact town. We're really in the lead. But would be really in the lead on the Outer Cape. So this would be a lead. The flip side of calling this an innovation will be some set of people who feel like you're telling me what to do with my property and I don't like that. So that's these two spectrums here. I think we feel confident with our recommendations that the data would support that, but that's a real feeling, including some members of our ZBA and planning boards who are uncomfortable with limits. So I just want to acknowledge that sort of, we've tried never to sort of be in the politics of this, but there is a political reality of different constituencies will react to this differently.
Thank you.
Perfect.
One more question.
Will the, as you move forward, will we see the part about the tree cutting, the clear cutting bylaw? Is
Oh,
that-
yes,
yeah,
you'll
that
see
will all be
everything,
included
everything
there.
in great detail.
Sorry, I just want.
Yes,
Everything
we have
great.
to
Really
get
liked that.
the language into an actual warrant article and
Right.
flesh out all the actual details, and then that,
And we only have 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I am
well, actually, that has
so
to,
impressed.
yes.
Yeah, this was awesome.
So
Thank
impressed
you.
with
Thank
all
you.
of
Um,
Pretty amazing, yeah.
I know there was someone in the public that maybe had a question. Can you make it very brief? No, you're good?
No, just that, somebody mentioned, demolishing, and you need a demo permit.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And welcome Kathleen Bacon from the Wellfleet
Yes.
Select Board.
Oh,
I've learned a lot.
great.
We're working on a lot of stuff.
She mentioned she's
Thank
working
you
on
for-
similar issues.
Yeah,
and She
thank
wanted
you
to
for
hear
being
the
here then.
presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Tree thing and legacy trees and,
Cool.
maintaining canopy, very important.
Great job, Mary.
Thank you.
Oh, and the entire task force. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight
They're
also.
exhausted.
Thank you.
They're
Good
gonna
job.
hands
Good,
together.
thank you.
I know. All right, we're gonna move it right along. Administrative matters, adopt proposed budget and submit to the finance committee.
Okay, now this is normally a rote activity because it's, as Rich and I just discussed, it doesn't make sense for you to vote on the budget right now because it's not totally done, but we have to do it by charter to send it to the finance committee. But just before you do, I just want you to think about 3 things. No, they're just 3 decisions that you're gonna have to make for us before we finalize the budget entirely. So the Rock Harbor dredge is currently, the estimate is $1.6 million, right? I just wanted to let you know, we have 128,000 left over from the first dredge that we've been saving. And we have $795,000 in the Rock Harbor improvement line. So if you want to, what I would suggest, if you are thinking about this, is that we keep $200,000 in the Rock Harbor improvement line, just in case we want to do some landscaping or something like that. And we put 725 towards the dredge, which would reduce the borrowing from 1.6 million to 875,000.
1.6 million is our share?
Yes,
Yeah.
Wow,
it's now 2023, right? The
Yeah.
last one was 850, right?
it was half, yeah.
And then we also will need you to start contemplating and making a decision about what we're gonna do with the $700,000 plus or minus that we're gonna have in free cash remaining that can be appropriated, put in the reserve fund. Last year, we sent it all to housing. It could still go to housing, it could go to stabilization, it could go to wastewater. Okay, so just think about that. And then Rich and I also want to let you know, on your next meeting, we're going to be having an executive session for the union contracts settlements. We have tentative agreements with 4, and we're close on the 5th. So we're ready to discuss it with you, and that will have, some discussion about, how much should the override be and all of that. So that's all we have for budget.
Jackie, does the 700,000 or so free cash, does that include the short-term rental tax receipts?
Yes,
Then
It's
it's
what's left.
exclusively the short-term rental piece.
Pardon?
It's exclusively.
Exclusively
short-term rental.
short-term rental, thanks.
Right, so do you need a motion that, when you need a motion?
Yeah, to send the budget to the finance committee. And
I
I
move
think
we
the
send-
starter word is adopt the budget and send it to the finance committee.
All right, I move we adopt the budget and send it to the finance committee.
Do you have any discussion?
Just one brief thing I thought of earlier that, this board, we get a stipend.
Mhm.
And I looked at some of the other, and the most recent thing I could find was 4 years ago. I think Harwich was looking at it. And the average was 2,800 per board member all throughout the Cape. Falmouth had the high of like 5,000 per board member. It's been a long time since we've had an increase. I think it's about 6, 7 years.
Actually, the finance committee asked about that at their last meeting.
So maybe give a little bump to the board members. I don't know how much wiggle room we have, but
$78.
Yeah, we have 700 now.
$78.
Split it evenly.
We can,
You can keep my share of that.
we can just,
No, I'm just saying, it's,
Just to set the standard that it's in line with surrounding towns. And you can choose to take or not, but to keep that up to date.
just
But
throwing it
I
out
think
there.
if we do that. In other words. I don't agree with doing it, but I'll go with what everybody else says. But if we don't do it this year, there's no way we're gonna do it in any of the following years.
All right.
Because based when we look at all the tax increases we're gonna do and
Yeah.
the visibility, the politics of. We're gonna raise our pay, and by the way, we're also raising your taxes.
Yeah.
Even if it was by $5,
Yeah.
we come out on the wrong side of that.
I do see, so. Just speaking as someone who like still works full-time and. Figures out how to do this too. It's helpful. That little bit of a stipend that we do get. For me. Cause it's hard when you're in this age bracket and in this working bracket. And your time is money. That's what our capitalist structure is all about. And your window to make money is limited because eventually you have to retire. So I do think the idea of possibly bumping that a little could be an incentive to pull younger folks into the board also.
I would be at work right now making money if I wasn't here.
And, I think it is something to think about.
so what would you like us to do? Would you like us to do like the comps, which is what we would do for union contracts? We look at the comps in the towns around us.
Yeah.
Would you
Because like I
like
said,
us to do that?
the most recent I could find just with a quick search was 4 years ago in Harwich.
I don't think it's a bad idea to just
Yeah.
look at what surrounding towns are. And I'm not saying we have to be at the top of it. I'm just
Exactly.
saying that I would hate for us to not touch this. And then 10 years down the road, there's this huge gap. And then whoever's on the board then kind of has the duty of raising the bar
Yes.
significantly.
That's called passing the buck. It's great
Yeah.
politically. It's really great politically.
No.
Actually, somebody just did this, so I'll let you.
Yeah, so we
But
should-
we're
talk
turning it
further.
over to the finance committee so they can flush
Discuss
it
it.
out and see
Yeah.
what, and that's where it came from last time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just the only thing I would add to all that is, we are going to the finance committee every week, Wednesdays. So you can either attend or watch the meetings to keep yourself in the loop.
That's right. keep meeting with everybody.
But I'd been neglecting. But probably wouldn't be a bad idea, not that you have to, but you're all welcome to come in one-on-one to go over some of these things. So if there are other areas like this that we need to address before we finalize everything, I'd rather know that, not sooner rather than later. So we
Can I add that I don't necessarily feel like I don't really have a horse in the race in us making more money.
Right,
It
right.
is nice that in the fact that I do take off work to come and do this, it is helpful to know that I am still making like a little bit of money while I do it. So to Jamie's point, it is
One of
it
the,
is helpful.
It is.
yeah, it was interesting. One
Yeah.
of the arguments in Harwich was there was someone who had to get daycare.
Right.
Or they had to get a babysitter while they were at meetings. And just that alone helped, pay for it. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. All right.
so
So
we-
we have to do
Yeah,
that.
we have to vote.
We have a motion on the table. Okay, so I will call the vote. Those in favor?
I,
Okay, we are all in favor. Next,
I make a motion, we approve the application for a Keno license for the Village Green General Store.
second,
I have a question. Are there any other markets that have Keno right now?
yep, 7-Eleven,
Did we approve
yep,
7-Eleven?
a while ago,
They've had it for a while.
yeah. I
I'm
think it was
sorry.
just when COVID hit maybe
know.
or something, because we talked about people being in there watching the screens and stuff. I remember that.
Weird, yeah, it was weird. Through the window.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I just feel like Keno belongs somewhere where people are seated and there for a while, just not. But
It's a tiny store.
It is.
exactly. Even more of the reason why it doesn't make sense.
They need it to exist, probably.
I am not a fan, but I will call the vote unless there's any further discussion. Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, no. All right, Cape Cod National Seashore Advisory Commission. Handing it over to you, Jackie.
Just wanted to know, wanted you to know that it has been reactivated. They are looking for an Eastham member. Your sitting member does not seek reappointment. And actually, the search committee got some information on it that I don't know if we put it in the packet, but if we didn't, we will.
You just
We
put the
just got-
letter, I think. But
Okay.
there is something on the website up.
Yeah, there's a criteria
Yeah.
for it, so.
Can a select person be one of the people on the committee?
You know, that's an interesting
Mm,
question.
that's
It's a
interesting.
special committee. So technically by charter, you can't be on any other
Special
appointed
board,
board
yeah.
though, right? Let me check that out.
But we have
It would
some
make
that, like,
sense.
I'm on the Affordable Housing Trust.
make
I mean, there's
Exactly.
Certain things that are,
And this is pretty
Niche-y.
important. I mean, I don't know.
Well, not that I wouldn't.
I'll think
go
about
on
it.
Well, no, I-
And be a deadhead, I mean.
No, I think you would be a good,
I just thought.
and it's a
We have
full
to do
position
it-
and an alternate.
Do we have to do it by 30 days from the 30th of January?
What?
So you can do it on the 27th.
oh, Lord.
We'll try and if anyone has any candidates that,
And look to see if a select board
What
member
happened
can.
to the guy that was doing it? He doesn't want to be back on it?
right,
Which means you get to write him a letter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we
Was-
don't appoint though. We
Yeah.
just refer to
Right.
the Secretary of the Interior or something, right? To, I
So maybe don't write a letter.
think it may, yeah, it is the secretary, I think, isn't it?
but basically they're gonna take who you send.
All right, so committee resignations.
I make a motion. we Approve the resignation of Krista Drew.
Second,
Second,
any discussion?
I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
I think she would have been great, but she turns out she got a new job she didn't
Oh.
expect when she got here and
Yep,
so
the
I
letter, yeah.
understand, but I think she,
Would've been
hopefully we'll
great.
see her in years to come because she was an incredible candidate.
Were you
I
you
interviewed her.
liaison for that?
Yeah,
So I can get some bullets from you? The
yes.
letter? Okay.
She never did serve. She never got sworn in.
She never got so.
No,
oh,
Oh, wow. So.
yeah, it was just the end of the year that
It's gonna
she,
be a creative letter then.
thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
yeah, well, and no, we'll talk because
Yeah.
Right.
like I said, I think
Good, no.
she'd
Okay,
be good in the
We have
future,
a
so,
motion or something.
yes.
Yep. I'll take a motion.
We
We already have it and a second.
Okay.
That was the
calling the vote.
discussion.
All those in favor of allowing Krista Drew to resign?
Aye.
Aye.
I have to make a correction. It's 30 days from January 23rd.
Damn it. All right, well, do you want me to appoint someone for you? I mean, no, we'll do it on the 27th.
All right, they probably will accept it
I
They
hope
will,
so,
yeah,
Jerry.
They will.
right in this letter.
All right, town administrators report.
So I'm not going to add anything to my report, but I do have 3 items that are sort of new items. So you may want to hear more about them at another meeting. I know bandwidth is getting shorter right now, right? But we have been having some discussions with other towns in the region about opioid settlement money. So the 4 towns in the Outer Cape would love to collaborate on how to spend that money. Right now it's set aside it's collecting and set aside, and it's not appropriated for any purpose.
Case manager.
So the 4 Outer Cape towns are going to work on pooling and coming up with a proposal. So the steps to that would be a proposal that the board would vote on. We'd enter into a memorandum of understanding and then design a program. So we don't have to do anything to spend the money right now, but I'd like you to consider that regional use of those funds, because there's really nothing we can do with them individually. And so it just makes sense that
Regional case manager.
and we are exploring, sharing a couple of positions with the town of Brewster. These are not new positions, they'd be existing positions that Brewster would like to borrow some of our capacity. And there's another department where we may be able to increase our capacity by pooling some resources with Brewster. So I just wanted to let you know that those discussions are underway. So we wouldn't do anything right now to change the FY24 budget, but we may be getting some remuneration for some sharing of staff from the town of Brewster.
So retroactive.
And
Bravo.
the third, that's a good one, right? We're making baby steps. And then the third one is also a collaborative effort. The Orleans Select Board have voted to approve the intermunicipal agreement so that Eastham residents can attend the Orleans Day Center. That money is going to be for the first year in an article on town meeting using a free cash transfer. So basically we'd have to pay per resident to subsidize that, them going to Orleans, but it will be available to our residents, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
So just wanted to let you know. And much cheaper than running our own day center.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. New upcoming agenda items or items that need to follow up. Art.
Kayla, could you check with Lori the draft letter to all the people that made comments on RTE? I gave it to her and she was going to send it out to all those people, but it's not in the, I can't find it in the package.
And she might have gotten sick and not done it yet.
So the second thing is that Mary and I interviewed a candidate, a select board designated candidate for the Finance Committee. And so in our next meeting, I think we'll bring that forward for approval by the select board as our candidate. He's a good guy. He's written a lot of stuff, got a really strong background. I think he'll be very good for the community committee, but we need to review that, approve them, and we do that or not approve them based on what you guys feel at the next meeting.
And I'd also like to add the short-term rental cap annual discussion that was brought up tonight. I'd like to see that added to our RTE January discussion that we normally have. To get the numbers on that. And I'm wondering if it's worth putting on a future agenda just to chat about.
Okay. I think the numbers are good right now. as
Yeah.
Laura said.
I think it's more just to talk about what it is and get it into the circuit of an annual update, just like the RTE, so that we're in the habit of staying up to date on it. And so residents know if a cap is for boating, you got to make sure your rental property is registered with the town because you don't want to get bumped out of that cap.
I don't know. Can I add something or if not add something? I'm curious to know a little bit more about Eastham's mutual aid response to the Lower Cape and how our staff and departments might be affected in the event that the Lower Cape doesn't meet some of their staffing needs over
Outer
the summer.
Cape.
Outer Cape.
Yeah, that was something we were going to talk about, but I think it just got bogged down. So
It's just not something that we have any answers to right now.
Okay.
So most of the transitions are happening at the end of this fiscal year. So I'm assuming in the next few months, Provincetown has a plan. We'll see if, they make progress on that. And I know the chief is keeping his eye on it definitely, but we can't have a meaningful discussion yet because we don't know. Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, there you go, Art. It's your moment to shine.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Minutes?
Oh,
Oh, ding. There's no
Sorry,
minutes. There's no minutes.
yeah, there are. Wasn't there?
it was listed on there.
Minutes?
Oh, there it is, January 23rd, regular session.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from January 23rd.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Yes.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
What-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just one more thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
apologize.
no, the upcoming meetings. I talked to Jackie
Oh, yeah.
about this.
Oh, yes, the schedule, don't, yeah, don't
We
go by
aren't meeting
this.
the 13th. We aren't meeting the 20th. We're meeting the 27th.
Oh, this is correct.
Yeah.
On
That's
the-
right.
On the bottom of
Oh.
our.
The digital packet was incorrect, but the paper packet is.
Ah.
Wait,
Just
so
FYI,
what's the next day?
The next
The
one is the
27th.
27th.
27th is no President's Day.
No idea why.
Right.
I think that it's just the February and March dates got mixed up somehow.
Can I go now?
Yes.
I
I'll
make a-
take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I second.
Okay, a favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. I don't remember if we did it or not. I'm tired.
All right.